GBNews.
MPs order a third investigation into whether or not the Prime Minister misled Parliament over Partygate.
Good morning to you. It is 6 o'clock on Friday, the 22nd of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the UK on your TV, on your radio and online. Coming up this morning, Boris Johnson holds talks today with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi. But will his trip be overshadowed by the Commons vote into whether he lied to the House?
The Mayor of Mariupol has said there are still 100,000 civilians trapped in the war-torn region awaiting evacuation as Vladimir Putin orders his troops to seal off the steelworks in the city.
Voters go to the polls on Sunday in the French presidential election. As campaigning continues today, Emmanuel Macron maintains a slight lead in the polls over his rival, Marine Le Pen.
And Ellie Costello is on your doorstep this morning in Portsmouth. She'll be seeing what stories are being talked about by the good people of this famous port city.
Yeah, and it's lovely in the sunshine. I hope the sun will shine for you in Portsmouth today. Love it. You can join in any of our discussions by emailing gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Well, the Prime Minister suffered another blow yesterday as MPs voted to open a formal inquiry into whether he knowingly misled Parliament.
Yeah, the government had attempted to delay the investigation, but they were defeated in doing that by a number of rebel Tory MPs, including the former Brexit Minister, Steve Baker.
Well, Boris is currently in India on an official visit, building new defence and energy partnerships with the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, who he's going to meet with in the next couple of hours or so. Now, the assistant editor for Conservative Home is William Atkinson, and he joins us now. Look, whether you're a supporter of the Prime Minister or not in all of this, this has the potential to be pretty bad for him.
Oh, definitely. I think he is on a very sort of sticky wicket at the moment. And I think a bit like President Nixon over Watergate is that it's not perhaps the original crime that gets you, it's the actual cover-up and the months and months of unfurling in the public eye. So especially sort of the vote yesterday to have him referred to the Privileges Committee, which will only start investigating and start reporting long after the Met and Sue Gray have also done their work, will mean that Partygate is just going to go on and on and on for the next few months.
I mean, we know when he said in the Commons that there was no breaking of COVID rules whatsoever. We know that that actually was wrong, so he did mislead Parliament. But what this is going to all be about is whether he knowingly misled Parliament.
Yes. So I think you can make a case that, for example, over the thing he's already been fined for with the Tupperware and the salads and all the rest, that might have been unknowingly. From what we know of everybody who was there, nobody thought they were breaking the rules at the time, so they were very shocked when they were fined for it. But yes, I think from what we know of what went on and from what is rumoured to have also been known of what went on is that there are perhaps at least 5 or 6 more incidents that he could be fined for. So this is not going to go away.
Within all of this, I mean, there's an argument to say, yes, you know, this has to be looked at, it has to be investigated. However, do you think there's a public appetite for all of this, for something stretching on for months and months and months while everyone else is suffering with the cost of living, concerns about Ukraine and whatever else is going on?
Yeah, I think there's certainly that case could be made. And I think especially sort of loyal Tory voters will be making it in full. I think there are parts of the public that are very angry, though, justifiably, and they want, the Prime Minister to sort of face justice for any rule breaking that went on. But as you say, there is only such a limited bandwidth in politics, and I don't think people are actually really ready for what's coming down the track. We were so surprised over Ukraine, the horrible conflict that's going on there, but we're going to be dealing with inflation that's above 10%. We're going to be dealing with potential public sector strikes and the like over the summer, and I don't think anybody's really ready for how much that will dominate the headlines. So whether we still want to be talking about Partygate then, I think is much more debatable.
So I wonder what his advisers are telling him, or whether indeed he listens to advisers anyway, or whether he just makes up his own mind. But he clearly feels he might be able to live through Partygate. And everybody, an awful lot of people are getting fed up with it, aren't they?
Yeah.
But as you say, there are other much more important issues. And if he's going to be sort of sacked for something, maybe it ought to be those very important issues instead.
Well, exactly. I think things that prime ministers usually leave over are either losing elections or big constitutional matters like with David Cameron, or the fact that they'd clearly run out of road, as with Theresa May. So whether somebody ate some cake at some point or not is not perhaps the biggest issue to go over. But as you say, I think the number 10 team is now on his third number 10 team in 3 years. And I think this team is starting to prove that they're just as dysfunctional as the previous two, and they have just as many problems.
Well, what about the backbenchers in all of this? There was certainly a backbench rebellion building before the Ukraine situation. That seems to have dissipated. Are we seeing that building up again?
Certainly, I think there is growing movements amongst parts of the backbenchers to try and get rid of him. But I think the difference between his situation now and Theresa May's is that Theresa May's opponents were very much those who wanted to deliver a hard Brexit, a no-deal Brexit, whereas now you've got lots of different Tory tribes who all dislike Boris Johnson but can't agree with each other to actually try and remove him. And so you see figures like Steve Baker, who was actually very important in getting Boris Johnson into power. But bless him, he's a very nice man, Steve, has a slight messiah complex on things like this. And I think he's wrestling with his conscience, he's wrestling with the fact that he thinks the Prime Minister has acted in many ways immorally, but whether...
He put Boris Johnson there, really,
yeah,
didn't he? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, he was, part of the ERG, he was a big organiser for the Prime Minister's leadership campaign. So Steve is somebody that a lot of MPs will follow, will be influenced by, but I think because he is sort of particularly sort of down the line when it comes to moral issues like this, that his approach might mean that he moves before a lot of other MPs are. I think most MPs are in a very bizarre place, which is they're neither willing to publicly back the PM or sack him, and they're just waiting to see and allow events to play out. How
much of this is about public perception, though, as to what they think of the Prime Minister? Because at the end of the day, MPs are self-preservers, if you like. They are going to be looking for a leader who is going to get them re-elected at the next election, aren't they? And certainly the PM has got that public appeal.
Well, I think, that's what people in Number 10, that's what allies of the Prime Minister are telling MPs and the like in private, which is that, look, he's never lost a national election. He never lost running to be Mayor of London, for example. So he is a proven winner. But I think, again, if you look at the polls and the way that the public see him, the sort of great albino piglet, as I think he was once called, is now sort of running out of road, because I think the public are genuinely very cross, and they're not going to just forgive him because it's Boris, as they perhaps would have done in the past.
But of course, the minute you start talking about Boris going, you have to think about who would take his place. And I don't know, I mean, are there any really serious contenders? Because that's, again, something the Tory MPs themselves must be thinking. All right, maybe we ought to be careful what we wish for.
Well, at the moment, the man who's most popular with our members, and some MPs like to talk about, is Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, because obviously he's having a very good war, as much as one can. But I think, first of all, he's too bald to be Prime Minister. And secondly, I don't think he has much of an interesting agenda.
Too bald?
Yeah, I think Ben is, again, a great and interesting man. But I think he's very much a party man. He's something of a sort of habitual squaddy. And so I think it's because he's popular with members at the moment doesn't necessarily mean he's next PM material. I think, after the last couple of weeks of headlines, people have been trying to rule out the Chancellor, at least in the foreseeable future. But I think what we're going to see in the next few weeks and months, if the Prime Minister is fined 5 or 6 times and the Chancellor is only fined once for basically turning up to a meeting early, I think his political stock may be about to rise again.
Yeah, but that's not the only thing against Rishi Sunak, is it, at the moment?
Well,
it's his, his tax affairs or his wife's tax affairs, and the green card status and things like that. People aren't so likely to forgive somebody or to want a prime minister who didn't seem to want to stay in the country for very long.
Well, I think that's the line that Labour will use against him, certainly. But I think if you look at the Chancellor's actual sort of past, the way that he's in many ways a sort of self-made man in that respect, I think people will forgive him. But also, you've got to remember the context in which any leadership election will be happening. It will be 3 months or more. It will be very drawn out. And it will also happen because the Prime Minister is never going to go voluntarily. It will happen after he's been forced out of Downing Street after some pretty torrid headlines.
OK. William Atkinson from Conservative Home. Good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, 9 minutes past 6. Let's bring you up to date with what's going on today. Ukrainian troops are in the UK. They're being trained on British armoured vehicles. Boris Johnson says more than 20 soldiers are being shown how to operate tanks and armoured reconnaissance cars. Britain is supplying 120 of the vehicles to Ukraine.
After nearly 2 months of fighting, Vladimir Putin says he's won the battle of the city of Mariupol, claiming he's liberated the people there. The city's mayor says President Putin has destroyed about 90% of the city and that it's not easy for those who remain to get out.
There are still 100,000 people in this city who, for the second day in a row, are waiting for evacuation. And they give us just such a tiny number of buses. Like it was yesterday, they said there would be 90 buses, but only 7 arrived.
A new natural history GCSE course learning all about the environment will educate what they're calling the next generation of David Attenboroughs. That's according to Education Secretary Nadeem Zahawi. Due to start at secondary schools in September 2025, it's part of the government's sustainability and climate change strategy.
The convicted sex offender linked to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has been made a formal suspect by Portuguese authorities. Police believe Christian Bruckner murdered the 3-year-old after kidnapping her in Praia de Luz in May 2007.
A third of consumers are cutting back on the amount they spend on clothing and eating out due to the cost of living crisis. KPMG found things like holidays and cinema trips are also being scrapped as people expect to be out of pocket by an average £82 a month.
I'm always a bit surprised when people are surprised that we're spending less money.
Exactly the same thing. You don't really need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. Or KPMG, really, do you?
No, spending less money on eating out.
And clothing. You cut back on those things that you can cut back on to start with, don't you?
Absolutely. I mean, who isn't going around the supermarket looking for the little bargains on everything? 10p here, 10p there, it all adds up.
Tell you what I don't like very much as well, and one doesn't like to knock advertisers when one is on, one needs them from time to time. But it's just, I find a little bit icky the fact that some advertisers are using the cost of living crisis to sort of say they've got bargains for you.
Oh, yeah.
Have you not noticed?
I've seen one or two. I can't think what they are.
Well, I can think of it. I won't say their name just in case they're an advertiser here. One has to be really careful. But I think that's wrong to use the cost of living crisis as a way of, trying to persuade you to buy their bargain instead of somebody else's.
Mind you, it's a legitimate argument in a way.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to spend the money anyway, spend a bit less with us, sort of thing.
Doesn't feel.
But I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But then again, we still like to be tempted by nice things, even if we haven't got the money to buy them, I guess.
Yeah,
how it works.
But it's almost as Icky is saying, isn't the world terrible at the moment? We've got wars, we've got people dying, we've got COVID, we've got everything else. But buy our chocolate. I mean, that wouldn't be very nice, would it? And that sort of feels a bit like that. Don't like it.
Let us know what you think. GBViews at gbnews.uk. Now, believe it or not, it is day 58 of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and President Putin has claimed victory over the besieged city of Mariupol.
In a televised meeting at the Kremlin, Mr. Putin congratulated his defence minister and Russian troops for the combat effort to liberate Mariupol.
Well, however, contrary to Putin's claims, reports from the US say there's no evidence that Mariupol has completely fallen, adding that Ukrainian forces still hold some ground in the city.
For more on this now, we're joined by freelance journalist Stefan Weikert. Good morning, Stefan.
Good morning.
Good morning. What is your reaction to the different ways the situation in Mariupol is being described?
Well, I must say that it's quite obvious that the whole city of Mariupol haven't fallen yet. I mean, there is still fighting going on in the city, as far as I understand, and it's limited to a factory area in there, a steel factory, which is actually a huge complex within Mariupol. I've been to the city many times, and this is like a very, very big factory that used to employ thousands of workers, and they're still fighting in there. But it is true that, I mean, the fighting is limited to that part of Mariupol, which, means that Russian forces have, control of the rest of the city, as far as we understand. And the situation within this factory, where some Ukrainian soldiers are still holding this territory, is very dire. I mean, they are cut off from supply routes. They are, as far as I understand, limited in the number of ammunition they have, food, and access to water.
How important is Mariupol as far as Putin is concerned from a strategic point of view? Does it help him, if secured, to then launch further attacks on other parts of Ukraine?
Yes, it does. I mean, it's been taking quite a large part of the Russian army to take this city, and the longer that the Ukrainian forces have been holding out, the more forces have been barbed down and couldn't be moved to other parts of Ukraine. So yes, it has a significance for the number of Russian troops that can be moved other places. And the city is significant generally also for Russia, because it is a city that you need to control the Sea of Azov, and the whole industry in the area, and also having what they call like a land bridge, a land connection between Crimea and into the two separatist-held areas, Donetsk and Luhansk.
And just recently, of course, we've heard from the mayor of Mariupol saying there are still 100,000 citizens there that need to be evacuated. What's going wrong, do you think, there?
I think that it has been very, very difficult to evacuate people. We have heard about these humanitarian corridors. I mean, like corridors that were supposed to be established after agreement between Ukraine and Russia, were supposed to allow like a safe passage of civilians out of the city. They haven't been working properly. We have heard like Ukraine claim that Russian forces have been shooting at civilians as they have left through these humanitarian corridors. And then I think we also have to understand that a lot of number of civilians just simply doesn't want to leave. That's not unique to Mariupol only. That's also in general what we are seeing in eastern Ukraine, is that while most people would like to leave, especially when the bombs start to fall, there's also a significant part of people who actually want to stay, no matter what, simply because they don't know where to go. They don't maybe necessarily have any savings or any family in the rest of Ukraine, and don't want to live as refugees.
There's all this talk about Mariupol being liberated by the Russian forces. I mean, I know it's very hard to gauge what people in Russia are quite being told, but do you think they would buy that as a way of describing what is going on? Is that what they are understanding, that a city has been liberated by Russia rather than invaded and destroyed?
It's really, really hard to tell. I think that what we hear is that to some extent, yes, Russians do believe that. For me, it's very, very hard to verify whether that is true, but we know that that is the narrative they're getting told by state TV and, the written press, and that it does have some, that actually quite a lot of Russians seems to believe that. And we also heard, from civilians, for example, not necessarily only in Mariupol, but in other parts of Ukraine, who have said that when the Russian forces also arrived, they actually did believe that they were coming as liberators, and that the Ukrainian civilians would celebrate their arrival, which has been far from the truth.
Yes, as they're learning, I suppose. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for bringing us up to date on the latest there, particularly concerning Mariupol. Stefan Weikert, thank you very much.
Well, at 18 minutes past 6, we're going to take a short break, but don't go very far, because we've got plenty more to come, including a look at Britain's first asylum system, processing people who may eventually get sent to Rwanda. Stay with us.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Friday's forecast. We're looking at sunny spells, particularly across the north of the UK through Friday. A few showers across the south, but notably windy for everyone. And the reason for this is low pressure sits to the south of the UK, high to the north. This is allowing a strong easterly wind to develop right across the country, so notably feeling cooler compared to recent days. Friday morning, a bright start for many, though thicker cloud across central southern parts of the UK. This slowly drifting its way westwards as we move through the morning and into the afternoon. Showers developing where the cloud starts to break up. Some of these could be heavy at times, but the Midlands, North Wales northwards, plenty of sunshine to come for much of the day, though some low cloud along eastern coast. And with that brisk easterly breeze here, temperatures peg back 11, 12, 13 degrees. Best of the sunshine across western areas, highs 16 or 17, so a little cooler than they have been of late. Through the evening, we should lose the showers across the south and southwest, but only to be replaced by a lot of cloud across the country, some mist and murk over the hills too, perhaps thick enough for the odd spot of drizzle. And in between, there will be some clear skies, but overall, temperatures not quite as low tonight compared to recent nights with a bit more cloud around, which means generally a cloudier start to Saturday morning compared to recent mornings. Bits and pieces of drizzle moving in off the North Sea. And through the day, a lot of cloud around. The best of the sunshine will be across western areas. Perhaps later on into the afternoon, some more sunshine developing across southern Scotland, northern England. But one or two heavy showers for the Midlands, Wales here, but hopefully in between some brighter skies. And where we can see the sunshine, temperatures 16 or 17, but still that brisk wind down the east, keeping temperatures here nearer 11 or 12. The wind should ease a little into Sunday, but there will be a lot of cloud around, the best of the sunshine in the west. Similar on Monday, but noticeably cooler as we head into Monday, with temperatures starting to fall away.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning to you, it's 22 minutes past 6. You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, under the government's new immigration policy, a former RAF site near York is going to become Britain's first asylum processing reception centre.
Hundreds of single male asylum seekers could be placed at the former RAF base within the village of Linton-on-Ouse for up to 180 days at a time, while their claims for UK asylum are being considered.
And those that are rejected for asylum will be sent then more than 4,000 miles away on a one-way ticket to Rwanda. Anna Riley has the story.
A former RAF base in the sleepy North Yorkshire village of Linton-on-Ouse is set to be the first UK asylum reception centre under new Home Office plans to tackle illegal immigration. The disused 680-acre facility will house up to 1,500 single male asylum seekers who could stay on the site for up to 6 months while their claims are processed, with access to Linton-on-Ouse and the wider area until 10 p.m. each evening. Residents weren't consulted on the plans, and many gathered at a parish council meeting on Thursday evening to voice their concerns.
Well, I'm shocked and surprised. I think people are angry and upset simply because of not being informed, because it's come so totally out of the blue.
I mean, they've got to go somewhere, but a village as small as this, it's crazy.
Currently, we live in a very tight-knit community. Everybody knows everybody. Our children feel safe to roam around. They can go to the park on their own, and that will change, and that makes us feel unsafe.
Fundamentally, it's a good idea. I think we should be supporting people that are coming from difficult situations.
But when you've suddenly got 1,500 adult males from a completely different culture being able to integrate in the village, wander around uncontrolled, I think it's dangerous.
The sharp increase in illegal boat crossings to Dover means about 37,000 destitute migrants are currently being accommodated in hotels, costing the taxpayer £4.7 million a day. Kevin Hollinrake, local MP for Thurston Malton, can see how housing migrants at the disused RAF Linton-on-Ouse site will save money and create up to 300 local jobs. But Kevin's opposing the plans as he doesn't believe the area has sufficient amenities to house hundreds.
I just don't think it's the right location. As I said from the Home Office advice, you'd expect this to be in a major conurbation, and then the residents there, who are free to come and go, can go out and access leisure facilities or the park or whatever else it is, doctors and dental surgeries, that kind of thing. Although I understand those things will be provided on the site, but it's bound to be easier to do things to access certain services in a large town or a city rather than a very small village, potentially up to 1,500 people. And that's bigger than the village. That's the camp itself would be bigger than the village at that point in time. So I just don't think it's the right location.
In response to concerns raised, a Home Office spokesman said the reception centre will contribute towards ending the costly use of hotels and help those most in need while returning those without a genuine right to remain in the UK. If the plans go ahead without opposition, the 1,200 residents living in this village could see the first migrants coming to this new purpose-built asylum reception centre within the coming weeks. Anna Riley, GB News, Linton-on-Ouse.
See, what I don't understand with that is the free access. People can come and go. Now, if there are people who think, I'm not going to get through this asylum system,
they'll just disappear.
They'll just vanish, won't they?
Hedgerows, won't they? Yeah.
I mean, why would they stay to be then sent to Rwanda if they don't want to go there?
Exactly.
It seems very odd.
It may drive more people underground, as it were, you know.
I mean, not that you want to sort of turn it into a prison as such, but surely asylum centres should be, you know, sort of secure while people are being processed, I would have thought.
The system isn't being terribly well explained to us,
it's not,
which is what I think is making a lot of people very suspicious as to whether it is just a diversionary tactic or something. Pre-May elections. Not long now, though, till the elections, is it?
No, only, week? Couple of weeks?
Yeah.
Like that. But I don't know. And I know there's always that thing, the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard, but in a tiny village like that.
Well, there's an ex-RAF base already there, I suppose. So they're looking for places like that they can immediately, because they've got to do it quickly. I
can understand why the people there aren't happy. Let us know what you think about that one. Loads of you getting in touch this morning. A few about Partygate.
Yeah, not a big fan of Partygate. A lot of people, I think, at the moment. I think everybody's just exhausted by it. David says, I'm not a big fan at all of the Partygate farce. Not that I'm a big fan of Boris Johnson, but it's everywhere on the telly. Anyway, he says it's good to see you two this morning. You are my favourite. Good day to you. Thank you.
Sean and Liam say, we're not sure about parties in number 10, but we are starting our day with a full British breakfast. Good morning from Rugby.
I tell you what would be nice to know, because the weather looks as though it might be good for a barbie in the garden or elsewhere on the beach, maybe, this weekend. I just wonder if you're planning one.
About 18 degrees, don't they? Is that warm enough?
It is if the sun's out.
Depends if there's a breeze.
Not particularly if the sun isn't, but it was a lovely day yesterday in the garden. I had a wonderful day pottering.
Will has been up all night.
Oh, why?
Will, who's in Oakley in Basingstoke. Morning to you, Will. I've been planning my snap trip next week all night. I've got things sorted now. Love the show. Glad you've got that all
But you have
sorted
to.
out.
See, I go on about this, but you like to know, you like to have something to look forward to. And that's good.
I think everyone needs something to look forward to at the moment because it's just everything is very depressing.
If it's a holiday, let us know. If it's a Barbie in the garden this weekend, let us know.
Or just
and are you going
catching up with family and friends.
Are you going to throw meat on the Barbie?
No.
Because there's this new study out, I read in my paper this morning, by the University of Cambridge, because they've been studying the bones or looking at the composition of the bones of people who lived in medieval times. And they have deduced that actually we have this idea that what they ate, and particularly the elite class, just had banquets or barbecues, if you like, that were just meat.
Yes, you
and apparently they didn't. They were much more vegetarian than we have previously thought.
I wonder why. Because you would have thought meat would have been pretty easy to source at that point.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they were very good at growing things, but apparently they were very. They didn't drink anything but mead. I've always wondered why. They didn't have drinking water like we have drinking water.
No, so mead was sort of safer.
So they drank mead instead. But mead is alcoholic.
Yeah, they were
sloshed. They must have been sloshed all day.
Yeah. Probably why they all died at about 35.
Well, maybe it is,
I mean, no one got to about sort of 40, did they?
But they had what they called pottages.
What's a pottage?
I think it's a casserole or something like that, a pottage of leeks and whole grains with a very little meat thrown in, or bread livened up with small quantities, this is in sort of medieval translation, small quantities of meat and cheese.
Livened up, I love that.
And apparently the elite ate exactly the same diet as the peasants. Any idea that the peasants only, stuck to a few grains, and it was the elite people who ate meat. Apparently not so. Apparently everybody ate more or less the same.
I don't know if I fancy a leek and grain pottage when I get home today.
Leek and potato soup.
I suppose.
Oh, lovely. It's the best.
I don't know.
Leek and potato soup is the best soup ever.
Is it?
Next to carrot and coriander. What's yours?
I quite like a spinach and nutmeg.
Get you.
Well, only because you can. But I remember buying that in the shops. I've never made it. But
I like making soup. It's very, very therapeutic.
Cathartic.
Yes, it's good for you to make soup.
Right.
Because A, it's easy, and B, it's lovely to have afterwards.
Yeah, well, there you go.
All right, your favourite soup. Your favourite soup.
Cooking with Anne.
Yeah, soup. But I have a soup maker.
Oh,
yeah,
that helps.
That makes it much easier.
Yeah, that does help, doesn't it?
One of these big things that goes all... You just put the things in. You don't even have to chop them up very much at all.
And
just
it does it
chuck
all?
them in. It does it all for you. Steam comes out and it makes an enormous noise, which frightens even the dog. But at the end of it, after about 20 minutes, you have perfect soup. It's really great.
Lovely. Must be one of those as well. Stay with us. We've got plenty more to come for you this morning, including a look at the biggest stories from today's papers. So don't go anywhere.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question.
That's two questions, actually. That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
.34, morning to you. Let's take you through the front pages this morning. And the Mirror says, at last, the Tories turn on the PM as party veterans call for Boris to quit as he faces a probe into what they're calling his Commons lies.
The Times reports that ministers were on the brink of quitting before the government changed course over plans to block Labour's party's inquiry.
The Daily Mail asks, how long can the Partygate farce go on after a Downing Street bid to block a new inquiry into the affair backfired?
And the Express reports British scientists are on the verge of revolutionising cancer treatment thanks to a treasure trove of previously unidentified patterns in cancer DNA.
Home sweet home, says The Sun, as a picture released by Cristiano Ronaldo shows his family together after the death of a son during childbirth.
Yeah, it's a very, very sad story, but lovely to see the family there. And they've got the birth of a little girl to celebrate.
Yes,
haven't they?
yeah, they
Which is
have.
good.
Let's go through the papers then in a bit more detail with political consultant Emma Burnell and philosopher Piers Ben. I'll get there in the end, Piers. Morning. Emma, let's start with the Mirror looking at Partygate. They're delighted this morning, the Mirror.
I mean, the Mirror leans left. Anyone who questions the probity of Boris Johnson, which I think is a vast majority, if you look at the polls, will be, I think delighted is probably not how most people are feeling, just vindicated again.
Do you even think vindicated? Because surely people are going to just turn around and say, haven't we got enough to worry about? I mean, if he was going to go and we could move on, perhaps something. But this is just going to drag on for months.
I think when someone's as clearly bad at their job and shouldn't be in it, I think the fact that we're in a time of really difficult crisis makes that more important to talk about, not less. I get very fed up with things like the front page of the Mail saying, how long are we going to talk about it? As if they had no licence over what goes on the front page of the Mail. We're going to talk about it because it's important who runs our country. It's important that the people who set the rules can be trusted to follow them. It's important that as we go into a crisis like the just increasing crisis of cost of living, and trust me, I was checking my gas bills yesterday and I know exactly how people are feeling about that, that we trust the people in charge to not only be honest with us, but also to have just a sense of what they're doing. And once again, they've just shown that they are headless chickens running around a playground the rest of us aren't allowed into, with no clue what they're doing.
They're not headless chickens, though, surely. I mean, our Prime Minister is at the moment in India, having a very important meeting. He was in Ukraine just a week ago? 2 weeks ago? I don't know. But, I mean, he's doing an important job. He's being a world leader. He's not running around like a headless chicken.
One of the three things the Prime Minister promised his party to get him through that first hump of Partygate was that he'd sort out his operation. What yesterday showed us in Parliament, what the farce of is there an amendment, isn't there an amendment, are we voting for it, are we voting against it, oh, who knows, shows that he has absolutely not got a grip.
What do you think, Piers? Because, I mean, you've been looking at that as well, the Daily Mail
Yes.
asking how long can this all go on?
Yes, the Daily Mail asked that question on its front page, and it seems to me that the sort of right-of-centre press is more or less agreeing with what Emma's just said. I mean, I agree with what Emma's just said. It is a sort of farce. You could say it's been manufactured by the media, but I think there's too much at stake. I mean, it's fairly clear that Boris Johnson is really just unfit for the office, unfit for any office, really, and that's been office for a long time. I'm not saying that just for the sake of it. He often says he's focused on delivering on the priorities of the British people. Unfortunately, one such priority at the moment seems to be to get rid of Boris Johnson.
Well, I don't know whether that's true. Yeah, it depends who you ask.
I mean, certainly, the vast majority of people who contact us say the exact opposite.
Well, maybe they do, but maybe the people who contact you are not representative. But it's interesting that
they have a view, certainly, don't they?
Yes, there is a view. I mean, I can see why people might think the whole thing's been blown out of proportion. But I think when you have this drip effect of the sort of bluster and waffle with which Boris Johnson confronts every question about his activities, particularly last night, it's embarrassing. And after the argument that we need him to remain in office because of Ukraine, well, it seems to be a pretty good reason for him going.
But the only time he does bluster, as you say, and has trouble finding the right words or looks as though he's very awkward about it, is when he's being asked consistently and constantly about Partygate. But if you were to ask him about Ukraine or India, as at the moment, he would have something very straightforward to say, surely. It's because we keep on at him about Partygate.
He had a reputation for blustering well before Partygate.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not new. His approach to not answering a straight question straightly is not new.
Yes.
No, but don't we have to boil this back down to... I think this is what people who contact us are thinking. I mean, not just that, now is not the time, which is a legitimate point, you've got to say, but also the fact when you look at what he's been accused of, and certainly with what he's been fined for so far, is a case of they really didn't think they were breaking the rules. They leaked it to the press when it was happening, and no one thought it was breaking the rules. So it's a complicated situation, that work-home space and people just having a slice of cake and a glass of wine after a day where they've all been sat together in the office.
Well, maybe it is a complicated situation, but lots of ordinary people have been fined for doing those very things. And I think what's angering a lot of people is the double standards problem, that what ordinary people are being punished for is something that's regarded as really a bit of a joke in those top political circles, and I think that's it's the cause.
Do you not think the press is being, and the media may be a bit hypocritical, saying how long can this go on, when they're the ones who keep the narrative going?
Oh, well, there's an argument for saying that these should have been hushed up, because if the problem is that you undermine the credibility of the lockdown rules by revealing that those in charge are breaking them, OK, I can see that. But I think there's a deeper point about holding people to account and about honesty and probity. I mean, it's quite an interesting question. Who did leak those Partygate details? Somebody must have been there. I assume that, that journalists and politicians hobnob a lot, so there must have been journalists at those parties.
Must have been.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it comes from somewhere. Sorry, I lost my thread, but...
No, I was thinking the
cake one was leaked to the Times as colour. It was supposed to be just a nice detail for a profile that was being written, but I think the problem at the moment is that he's only been fined for the birthday cake incident.
Yes.
There's a lot more to come.
Yeah, well, the Sue Gray report apparently has many photographs, which would be lovely to see. So, I mean, we need to know more, but it's the fact that it's all being eked out over such a long period of time.
Well, there's one way to stop that. I mean, the question is, I'm not a Tory. I think that's been fairly obvious to your viewers every time I've come on. But Tories need to ask themselves, do we want Tory things to happen, or do we want this man to stay in his job? Because at the moment, those are the options. And I think if I were a Conservative, I'd be really worried that the reason nothing's getting done is because all the energy's being put into protecting this one guy. Why?
Because he got them into power in the first place.
Well, he might have got them into power in the first place. They used to be very good at getting rid of people when they stopped keeping them in power. Right up to and including their patron saint Margaret Thatcher.
But I don't know if we are at a point where people would say Boris Johnson will not keep them in power, are we? Because he still has that public appeal, and whether you like his methods or whether you like his approach to things, you have to say. I mean, you look at Brexit as an example. He was the only person who came forward and said, "No, we're just going to do it." we're going to do it. With all this dithering that had been going on, then we're going to do it. You voted for it, we're going to do it. And it's got done. People like that.
A moment happened. It's still ongoing.
Come on, it's pretty much.
I mean, ask the Northern Irish how much it's done. But I think, OK, Boris is a bull in a china shop. Every now and again he hits a target. Most of the time he's breaking the crockery.
But you're right. I mean, the Tories will get rid of him when they fear for their own seats and they fear for the general election. When enough backbenchers are afraid for their own seats, that's when it will happen.
But they should be afraid for their values and their policy.
As well, yeah, of course. I agree. I mean, you need to be afraid for both. But, yeah.
But it's just awkward times at the moment, isn't it? Because, I mean, the May elections are only weeks away now, so they can't make any bold decisions before then. On the other hand, the May elections will tell them a lot about how the public are really feeling about them.
Yes, we have to wait to see what will happen about that. And the other problem is with whether people trust the alternatives enough, whether people trust Keir Starmer, who seems to many people to be a decent, solid person, but lacking in the sort of spark and charisma or whatever you're meant to have to be a Prime Minister. I mean, personally, I think Prime Ministers should be boring. Rather good, grey people who just got things done, if they do get things done. But
like John Major back, would you?
Oh, poor old John Major, who was much maligned, I think.
It turned out to be a lot less boring than we thought.
Well, that's very true.
Yes.
He was the one person that back in my radio reporting days, and when I met him, he actually looked grey, like the spitting image puppet of him. He did. I was just like, wow, he really is.
That was
grey.
Viciously accurate, wasn't it?
It was.
but a very charming and a very engaging man, actually. When you got to know him, I met him first time. Just met him to talk rather than to interview, in a queue for the loo at Geoffrey Archer's house.
Wow.
Oh, I don't know if I'd admit to that. I don't know if I'd admit to that.
Yeah, and Geoffrey Archer always used to throw these amazing parties that you went to, whatever your whatever. And there I was queuing for the loo, and it was John Major ahead of me. And he was telling me about cricket, basically. I thought would be a bit boring, but he was absolutely fascinating.
Oh, well, there you go.
Cricketer. I don't know why I threw that in the mix.
No, look, we're out of time. But it's been interesting, actually, to get your views on that. Emma Burnell, Piers Ben, thank you both. You've got a view on that, and I'm sure you have.
Oh, we've got the views coming in already.
GBNews.uk. Mia Mark says, the P word again. Love you two, though. Greetings from Douglas.
Yeah, Douglas.
Oh, nice.
Christine says, why is the media so desperate to get rid of our brilliant Prime Minister?
Kenny says he should perhaps call a general election. That may remind those ungrateful Tory MPs who's responsible for them being in Parliament.
Yes, he could actually turn around and frighten his own backbenchers with that, couldn't he?
Yeah,
because he could call a general election. Not that he's going to, but he could.
Terry says, as a long-standing Conservative Party member, I'm disgusted with the likes of Harper, Baker et al. We, the members, voted Boris in. We should be the ones to have the decision on if he goes or if he stays.
Should we bring you up to date with the headlines? Boris Johnson is meeting his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, in New Delhi today. As well as talks on defence, fossil fuels and trade, the Prime Minister, of course, aims to loosen India's ties, if he can, with Moscow. That's amid concerns over its neutral stance on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. On Boris Johnson's warm welcome to the country, he said he wouldn't get that necessarily everywhere.
Ukrainian troops are in the UK being trained on British armoured vehicles. The Prime Minister says more than 20 soldiers are being shown how to operate tanks and armoured reconnaissance cars. Britain is supplying 120 of the vehicles to Ukraine.
After nearly 2 months of fighting, Vladimir Putin says he has won the battle of the city of Mariupol, claiming he has, quotes, liberated the citizens there. The city's mayor, Vadim Bichenko, says President Putin has destroyed roughly 90% of the port city and that it's not easy for those who remain to get out.
And a new natural history GCSE course. Learning about the environment will educate the next generation of David Attenboroughs, according to the Education Secretary at least. It's due to start at secondary schools in September 2025, part of the government's sustainability and climate change strategy. I like natural history, but a GCSE in that sounds dull as ditch water.
Oh, I bet it's not. No, I was just thinking I'd like to do a GCSE in that, yeah.
Oh, no.
I think we should have started educating a new generation of David Attenboroughs years ago.
I just sort of think, why aren't you doing more sort of maths and sciences and proper subjects?
Yeah, you do those as well, though, don't you?
Call me old-fashioned.
Yes.
Now, tenants in England are reportedly refusing to leave properties they rent because of a huge shortage of rental homes on the market.
Yeah, letting agents say the situation has become so serious, some tenants are just ignoring eviction notices and stay in properties until they are forcibly removed.
Well, Pilgrim Tucker is a housing campaigner for the Radical Housing Network and joins us in the studio. Good to see you this morning. What is causing this?
OK, I just should make clear I'm not here as part of the Radical Housing Network.
OK.
Yeah, I don't want to be accused of representing people I'm not representing. So, sorry, what's the cause of the crisis?
Yeah.
Housing provision shouldn't be in markets. Basically, there's a fundamental contradiction between the wages that people are being paid and the level of wages that people are being paid.
Are you saying this was inevitable in the end, then?
Pardon?
Are you saying more or less this was inevitable, that we would get to a situation where tenants just can't afford to pay their rent?
We've been there for a long time. It's just got a hell of a lot worse since COVID. Yeah. I mean, successive government legislation has made things a lot harder for people on ordinary incomes to be able to afford to rent or to buy. And yeah, it's a real crisis, I think, coming.
So what is... I mean, is there a solution to this? Because I guess what you can't do is force landlords to significantly reduce rent.
Well, you can regulate rents. What we actually need to do is take an intelligent approach to housing markets. However, it's very, very difficult to do that because the vested interests are so big. The money in housing is so big that rational solutions actually don't get listened to.
What would be a rational solution in your view? A return to more council housing, things like that?
Well, yeah, public housing has been proven to work. It's only stopped working since it's been attacked by neoliberal governments who have done this for ideological reasons.
It's funny because when you talk to people who were brought up in council houses, they can't see anything wrong with them at all. In fact, there are many council housing developments that were very proud and very good housing developments, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, there were some awful ones.
I mean, if you go to Lancaster West Estate, which is where Grenfell Tower is, you will see a really rich, thriving community, really mixed community. Unfortunately, social housing's been denigrated for decades and decades and decades by people who wanted to make money out of it. And the residents have also been denigrated as part of that. You know, but I mean, we're in a situation now where we're in such bad economic state. Wages are so low for ordinary people. People can't afford to rent in London. I mean, it's simply impossible.
Can't afford to do anything in London now, I think.
And wages are so low. So this is a fundamental problem with our economy. And it always has been with the housing market. And the fact is that housing cannot be provided adequately to ordinary people by ordinary market mechanisms. You know, and that was recognised historically. And everybody recognised it by, you know, by 1920, by 1926, you know, got Conservative ministers pursuing public housing because it made sense. Because socially, you can't have people being made homeless. You know, the consequences for children are just, you know, the permanent, life-changing consequences for children and for mothers, you know. And I think, you know, we denigrate people who claim benefits or who need social housing, but most of the working population are claiming some kind of benefits. I mean, you cannot rent in London without on an ordinary wage without having your rent topped up by universal credit. So, you know...
Well, let's not just talk London, but I know that there must be hundreds of people watching at the moment, maybe more than that, who are probably brought up in council housing themselves. What do you think of it? Is it time for more of a return to that sort of housing? And is it just London that's too expensive? I guess not.
No, there are lots
probably
of
most places are.
Pilgrim Tuck, it's really good to talk to you this morning.
Thank you
very much indeed.
Yeah,
love to get your thoughts on that one, because it's such a hugely important issue. GBViews at gbnews.uk.
And now it's time for On Your Doorstep.
South East of England reporter Ellie Costello is on your doorstep this morning. That's if you're in Portsmouth. Morning to you, Ellie.
Good morning, Stephen and Anne, and happy Friday to you. It's a beautiful sunny morning here in Portsmouth. It's a historic naval city here. 2/3 of Her Majesty's Navy are actually based, the ships are based down at the dockyard, which is about 2 or 3 miles from where we are now. It's also the city that is the birthplace of Charles Dickens, didn't you know? So there you go. We are here all morning talking to local people about issues that matter to them, and we'll also be asking them about the things we've been discussing on the breakfast show this morning. Well, I wanted to come to this house because this sign has really caught my eye, this pink sign, number 19, Icon Beauty. So let's have a little knock and see what's inside. Oh, there's a beauty appointment going on there, which I look like I'm interrupting, and there's a dog as well, so lots to look forward to here. Hello, you are live on radio and TV on Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. Would you like to introduce yourself? Sorry, I've interrupted your beauty appointment. Hello.
Hello, I'm Millie. Hello, I'm Cheryl, Millie's mum.
You're Millie's mum, and I've interrupted a beauty appointment here. What are you having done?
I'm having my lash infills. They've been on for too long.
Have they?
Yeah.
They look wonderful. I thought you'd already had them done.
No.
That's a testimony to your work, Millie, that they already look this good. And who's this down here, the main man?
Elvis, the little salon dog.
Elvis the salon dog. So he is always here with you, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, he is beautiful. He's a very good boy. Morning to you, Elvis. So we are here this morning talking about Portsmouth, all things Portsmouth. First of all, tell us about this room, because this is great, this little cabin.
Yeah, so I've been in the industry for about 5 years, and I'll say like 9 months ago we decided to get this built for me. I think because of lockdown and being at home, and now Elvis can come with me. So, yeah.
Certainly a perk, isn't it? It's not a very long commute for you, is it?
No, it's really handy. It saved me on petrol.
Oh, perfect, perfect. And you're nice and busy as well, I hope.
Yeah, I'm really busy, which is good.
Good.
There's lots of lash and brow artists in Portsmouth, and we're all busy, so...
You've got a nice community here.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, fabulous. Well, we're here in Portsmouth this morning talking about the local area. What do you guys think of Portsmouth? Cheryl, how long have you lived here and what do you like about Portsmouth?
Oh, I was born here. I've lived here on and off all my life. What we like, we're keen walkers and cyclists. You can go up to the top of Portsdown Hill, 5 minutes walk. You've got views over the Solent. It's beautiful. We love the cycle paths along the coast. But then you're 10 minutes drive from the city centre.
Yeah.
You've got the shops and...
Yeah.
And Millie, what do you like about it?
I like the shops and the nightlife. Gunwharf Quays is you've got your shops, and then you've got all the bars for cocktails with your friends. So it's quite a nice area really in the sea. It's nice.
All the important things. Lots of people come and check out Portsmouth if they haven't been here before. Now, one thing,
very lucky.
Yeah, so it's a fantastic place. Now, one thing that we've been talking about on the breakfast programme this morning is the rising cost of living. How has that affected the two of you? Cheryl, we'll come to you first.
Well, obviously the gas and electric shot up. Luckily, we've got the weather. We don't have to have the heating on at the moment. But I don't know what we're going to do in October, you know, when it starts to get cold. As for fuel, I'm cycling everywhere I can at the moment.
You have
when
to.
I
It's
can.
so expensive, isn't it? It's so expensive to fill up your car.
Yeah, it's not good.
No, not good. And Millie, what about you? Because you're obviously trying to run a business here.
Yeah.
With the rising cost of living, do you think people will still come and get beauty treatments as often as they are?
I did have to up my prices a couple of weeks ago, but luckily it's not affected business, but it's just with the cost of my products rising and obviously the cost to run it. It's just, if you don't do it, you're sort of taking a pay cut really, which is not ideal. So, yeah, but everyone seems to have not minded,
No.
luckily.
Still want to get their lashes done. Is the important thing. They are essential items. Well, thank you very much, the two of you, for talking to us this morning. Fantastic to be with you. And stay with us, Stephen and Anne, because we're going to be in Portsmouth all morning talking to local people about the issues that matter to them.
Lovely stuff. Ellie, thank you. You get a mani-pedi while you're there.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yeah. I tell you what, though, it must be very difficult running a business, particularly a business that deals with that sort of thing, which is a sort of like a luxury, and maybe the first thing you decide not to spend money on, given the cost of living crisis.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you've still got to pay the bills like the rest of us. Look, stay with us. We've got lots more coming up for you in just a couple of minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
MPs order a third investigation into whether or not the Prime Minister misled Parliament over the Partygate affair.
Good morning. It's 7 o'clock on Friday, the 22nd of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We are, of course, live across the whole of the UK. We're on your TV, on your radio and online. Coming up today, Boris Johnson holds talks with the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, in New Delhi. But will his trip be overshadowed by the Commons vote into whether he lied to the House?
The mayor of Mariupol has said there are still 100,000 civilians trapped in the war-torn region, awaiting evacuation as Vladimir Putin orders his troops to seal off the steelworks in the city.
Voters go to the polls on Sunday in the French presidential election. As campaigning continues today, Emmanuel Macron maintains a lead in the polls over Marine Le Pen.
And Ellie Costello is on your doorstep this morning in Portsmouth. She'll be seeing what stories are being talked about by the good people of this famous port city.
We'd love to hear from you this morning. Loads of you getting in touch, whether it's about the Prime Minister, whether it's about the cost of living, whether it's about what your favourite soup is. All the thoughts coming through today. GBViews at gbnews.uk, and we'll go through some of them pretty shortly.
Actually,
We'll go
Kate
through
says,
there.
Kate says, good morning from Southend.
Oh, lovely.
I had a morning jogging on the beach already, and the weather is all right.
All right. All right is all right.
All right.
isn't
Dean
it?
says, morning from Winchester.
Oh, Winchester's lovely.
I've decided to have a shot every time I hear the P word this morning.
Oh.
You don't mean a drink. It's a bit early in the morning for that, isn't it?
I think you're going to be sozzled by about 8 o'clock.
Yes, that's true.
We were talking about the migrant centre. They're turning an RAF base into a migrant centre.
Is that in Linton-on-Ouse?
Linton-on-Ouse, well remembered. But the concern is there are going to be more people there than there are in the village. It's a very small village, and people are going to be free to come and go. It's not a sort of secure centre. Jack says, I hope the concerns of the residents of the village are listened to. None sounded racist, just genuine concerns.
Yes, I can understand that too.
Carl says, how ridiculous to house 1,500 single males in a site in Linton. God help the locals. Aren't there any empty buildings in London? I think that's the argument, that it should be in a bigger area.
Yeah, Phil says housing immigrants, mostly illegal and male, in a small village like Linton-on-Ouse, allowing them time during the day to go out, will be a disaster for the residents. When they go out for the day, it'll be interesting to see how many actually return.
Andy says, I'm confused. Weren't we told they were going to be processed offshore? Well, I thought that. If they're housed at RAF Linton, what's to stop them absconding?
Yeah. Well, I've heard reports that many are saying, rather than, possibly go to Rwanda, they'll just disappear and go underground, as it were, and stay. So whether it's going to do any good, I mean, a lot of the experts we spoke to last week sort of said it's just not going to work. On the other hand, as Priti Patel said, come up with something better.
Yeah. On the Partygate issue, get those shots ready. Dean?
Yeah.
Keith says, the question we need to ask is Boris Johnson good at his job? I think he's probably the best PM since Churchill.
Gosh, because Karen says, let's all applaud Boris for the good he's doing Ukraine. Partygate is just an excuse to oust him.
Paul doesn't agree, though. He says, I wish you'd stop defending Boris Johnson. He's a liar and not fit to run the country. It's time someone stood up.
Yeah, Dave says, gosh, there's such opposing views. Dave says, you seem to miss the point that he broke the rules, his rules, and he lied. Question is, how many more times in other things has this happened, and how much more will it happen in the future? I wouldn't trust him as far as I can see him.
Oh. That's an
unusual way of putting it, isn't it?
I get your point.
But Dean has probably swallowed quite a few shots by now.
Yes, very possibly.
Watch how you
very
go.
Possibly. Look, Boris Johnson, that is our main news today, because he did suffer a significant blow yesterday as MPs voted to open a formal inquiry into whether the Prime Minister knowingly misled Parliament.
Well, the government attempted to delay that investigation, but even some of the Prime Minister's closest allies have turned against him, including the former Brexit Minister, Steve Baker. Here's what he had to say.
The reason that he is not long gone is because removing a sitting Prime Minister is an extremely grave matter, and goodness knows people will know I've had something to do with that too. All of us should approach such things with reverence and awe and an awareness of the difficulty of doing it and the potential consequences, and that's why I've been tempted to forgive. But I have to say now, the possibility of that really, for me, has gone. I have to say I'm sorry that for not obeying the letter and the spirit, and I think we have heard that the Prime Minister did know what the letter was, the Prime Minister now should be long gone. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll certainly vote for this motion, but really, the Prime Minister should just know the gig's up.
Well, the PM wasn't able to fire back directly because he's in India. The PM's on that official visit to build new defence and energy partnerships with the Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi.
So the political editor of The Express Online, David Maddox, joins us now. Morning, David. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning.
Yeah, so this will be a blow to Boris because it is like one step nearer possible defeat, isn't it?
Well, it just feels like the net is slowly closing in on him now, actually. When I was talking to, not the usual suspects, actually, but, people who have been allies of his, people within the operation have been brought in to help turn the operation round, really were panicking yesterday, and were actually agreeing with Steve Baker in many ways that the gig really is up. And a lot of them can't see how the PM can get out of this now.
Someone like Steve Baker, though, I mean, he's putting his head above the parapet, if you like, but he's someone who is really... he either blows very hot or very cold when it comes to the Prime Minister. That doesn't do his credibility any good, does it?
No, and to be honest, I think Steve Baker's speech yesterday was more symbolic of what was going on behind the scenes, as far as I interpreted it. If it had just been Steve Baker, you know, he's a very eloquent individual. He's got a lot of support on the right of the party because of his Brexit credentials and things. But, you know, it's what's going on behind. It's the MPs who are not being public, but saying really the game really is up unless something turns around. I mean, yesterday in Parliament was completely chaotic from the government side of things. You know, they had to withdraw a motion or an amendment to a motion which would have chucked the whole thing into the long grass, and that was embarrassing. And then the last minute, they decided to give their own MPs a free vote. That was embarrassing as well. So, you know, you could just see the dominoes beginning to fall. And of course, you know, the PM actually doing a very important job out in India, but unfortunately that meant that he wasn't there to defend himself. And, you know, this is a problem for him. He's... There are kind of increasingly few escape routes for him as we go along.
But it must be very, very difficult for the Tory backbenchers, for the Tory faithful to know what to do at the moment because, I mean, Boris Johnson only has to go to India and shake a few hands and he makes all the front pages. He has that sort of world leader charisma, doesn't he? And they know that means votes, usually. Certainly meant a lot of votes last time. But they were also thinking how many of those voters are just so fed up with Partygate that they will turn. It must be a very, very difficult one for the Tories to try and feel the temperature.
No, I agree, and actually, he is a very good Prime Minister. He's, you know, when I was on your show the other day, I was saying he got the big decisions right. He's got it right in bucket loads over Ukraine. He got it largely right during the pandemic, especially with the vaccine rollout. You know, for my newspaper and for a lot of Conservative voters, he was hugely right over Brexit and showed real leadership there. And he has got enormous charisma. The Conservatives and Labour don't really have anybody to match him in that respect. But there's, of course, the problem is there's all these distractions around him. And essentially now the issue will be if he's been found to mislead Parliament in terms of parliamentary rules, that is as serious as it gets. And, you know, the ministerial code is quite clear on these matters and that he would have to resign.
The problem here is, I know we haven't got a crystal ball, David. We can't see what's going to happen in a couple of years when we are likely to have the next general election. But if a Prime Minister is toppled like this at this point, when the Conservatives have been in power, in effect, since 2010, this could, I mean, the backbenchers need to be aware, don't they, that this could be the beginning of the end of a Conservative government for the time being, at least. It seems like it's the beginning of the slippery slope, doesn't it?
Well, it does have that kind of last days of Rome feel to it. I mean, there's, you know, knifing one Prime Minister was unfortunate. Two, that was with David Cameron. Two, with Theresa May, is beginning to become like a pattern. And then once you go on to the third, you know, people begin to wake up and think, what the hell is going on here? I mean, you know, he may yet survive because of it. And, you know, and as I say, I mean, the big issue, I think, really for Tory backbenchers and Tory MPs and the party in the wide sense is who the hell would replace him anyway? You know, because there's not a clear candidate. A lot of people are now talking about Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, but I mean, he's had a good kind of Ukraine crisis, but he's unproven in a lot of other respects. He certainly doesn't have Boris's charisma at all. You know, Liz Truss is quite popular, but what does she really stand for? Priti Patel is another name, but, you know, she's such a divisive figure that, you know, it's hard to see her win. So this is a problem they're facing. And, you know, they're heading to an enormous election in 2024, which could be, you know, is a very different prospect to the last one because, of course, there's no Jeremy Corbyn now.
OK, David Maddox from the Express Online. Good to see you this morning. Thank you.
Fascinating
times.
I mean, it's interesting. Ben Wallace, the Defence Secretary, that he doesn't have that charisma. I wonder how many of you out there really know him or know anything about him.
Or any of the others. That's where, I mean, I don't think Priti Patel would be a likely contender, do you?
Oh, I think the hat would go into the ring. I do.
She'd throw her hat into the ring.
She'd throw her hat into the ring.
Would anyone pick it up?
So she is a divisive figure, so it's a difficult one. But I mean, do you need a... You look at the most successful prime ministers we've had. You're from Churchill to Thatcher to Blair, and even to David Cameron. They're all very charismatic figures.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I was going to say, if Keir Starmer were Prime Minister, would he make, front pages like that and just by visiting India? No, it's not. And it's not. These pictures aren't just because Boris is in trouble at the moment. These pictures are because Boris has charisma, and when he arrives, he's arriving on the world stage. He's somebody you'd cross the road to meet, isn't he? Maybe not. But I can't see Keir Starmer or anyone on the Labour front bench having that sort of effect. Can you?
I sort of think it'd be interesting to know, actually, if you want to get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Do you need to vote for someone who you just think is going to do a good job, or do they have to be someone that you think you would like?
Have you ever met him? Have you been in the same room as Boris Johnson? What sort of effect did he have on the room? I have, and he lights up a room.
Yeah, he does.
So that's interesting. And maybe it's wrong that we need a Prime Minister with, Hollywood appeal, but that's the fact nowadays, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Theresa May's very nice in person. She's a lovely person in the flesh, but the charisma never really came across, did it?
No.
Which is which didn't work in her favour.
And the Tories will remember times when they have voted either a leader or a Prime Minister who hasn't got it, and they just go for years into the background, don't they?
So, anyway, your thoughts on that would be very welcome this morning. Should we get to it, maybe we need a general election. Shake up the board a bit.
It really would. Maybe we do. We were also talking earlier about how the fact that the cost of living crisis is getting so bad that a lot of people can't afford to rent, let alone buy, can't afford to rent anymore. And we were asking the question, should we be building more council houses and going back to a time when it was fine to live in one? June says, we live in a 2-bedroom council house. We pay £670 a month. We're both on the minimum wage and we're really struggling.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? But £670 a month is a bargain.
It is, I
mean, that's the reality of it nowadays. That's actually a bargain. Paul says, stop giving homes to the immigrants. That would be a start. Arrive on a boat, get a house with all bills paid. What a joke.
Karen says, I refuse to live on a council estate with loud, obnoxious families with drink and drugs problems. I've been there, done that, never again.
Paul says, well, it's different, Paul, I don't know. We can't be expected to be the landlords for the rest of the world. Mass immigration over the last 30 years is one of the big causes of the problem. I think there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to be said for social housing, a lot to be said for council housing, and certainly there's always been an appetite for it. And yet, when the council houses were sold off, everybody wanted to buy their own house.
Yeah, but a lot of people feel that was wrong. Council housing should be council housing.
Yes, but if there's an appetite now for people saying, oh, yes, we want council housing, well, the people who lived in council houses wanted to buy them. My grandparents did that. They bought
their own council house?
Yeah, stayed in it till they passed away.
See, Margaret Thatcher brought that policy in, didn't she? And it was, as you say, massively popular amongst those people who wanted to buy their own council house. But surely there is an argument for saying if they wanted to buy, they should have gone and bought a house that was already for sale and left the council house for somebody who needed rented council accommodation.
Well, it's an argument.
Love to hear from you if you bought your own council house during that time.
Oh, it was so popular. And they stayed in it. They didn't sort of sell it and make a profit or anything else. They just stayed
Some
in
did,
it.
though, didn't they? Some made them.
They would live 2 doors... What was it? 2 doors or 3 doors down from Emlyn Hughes's
Oh, is that
parents.
right? Gosh.
Yes, there you go.
Yeah.
Worcester Street, Barron-Furness.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Lovely.
OK, 16 minutes past 7. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines. And a German national linked to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has been identified as a formal suspect by Portuguese authorities. Officers haven't named the individual, but in 2020, German police said they were investigating a man known as Christian B in connection with the disappearance of the 3-year-old in Praia de Luz in May 2007.
Ukrainian troops are in the UK now being trained on British armoured vehicles. Boris Johnson says more than 20 soldiers are being shown how to operate tanks and armoured reconnaissance cars. Britain is supplying 120 of the vehicles to Ukraine.
The school where Logan Mwangi attended has paid tribute to him, saying he was a friendly, energetic and popular little boy. The body of the 5-year-old was found in a river last July in South Wales. His mother, stepfather and a 14-year-old boy have all been found guilty of his murder.
A third of consumers are cutting back on the amount they spend on clothing and eating out due to the cost of living crisis. KPMG found things like holidays and cinema trips are also being scrapped because people expect to be out of pocket by an average of £82 a month.
I love going to the pictures.
Yeah, me too.
But it's so expensive. I can understand why people are cutting back.
Well, if you're taking a family,
expensive.
yes.
Looking at 50 or 60 quid for a family, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's a lot of money, but that's without the popcorn.
Well, the popcorn doubles that, in my opinion. The other thing I was thinking about Madeleine McCann is that they keep coming up with this, he is being treated as a suspect. Can they just get on and investigate it properly? I will never forget the disappearance, none of us will, of Madeleine. And watching you, I remember watching you day after day after day, thinking, please tell us some good news, please tell us some good news. Couldn't take my eyes off the television during that time because I just wanted to know. And then gradually, it turns into months and then years. And
what I've never been able to get my head round, though, with that particular story is when you look at so much focus on her, and I understand that, and rightly so to an extent. But when you look at the figures of how many children go missing in the UK every year, it is terrifying.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
And what I've never been able to understand is why we've had so much focus on one person and not on all the others.
It's because she was beautiful and pretty, because it happened in Praia de Luz, which, and because it happened during a time when they were just an ordinary family having a holiday, and I think everybody identified with that. But also because her parents made it their business to create a campaign that would not let her be forgotten. And you can understand that, as not everybody can do that.
No, that's true.
But it's just so sad that we still don't know.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. OK, the French President, Emmanuel Macron, has gained a lead on his opponent, Marine Le Pen, following a complicated TV debate between the two rivals.
Yes, on Sunday, then, voters head to the polls. But analysts say voting levels will probably be lower. Macron has strong support in Paris, and Le Pen has a loyal following in the north. So who's going to win?
That's the question. Let's see if journalist Peter Allen, who's in Paris, can answer that one for us. I mean, we are looking at, they think about a 10-point lead for Macron at the moment, don't they? I mean, is that considered to be significant or slight?
It's considered to be very significant. In fact, the opinion polls are normally pretty accurate here. And polls this morning actually have him at 15% higher than Marine Le Pen. Clearly, polls can be wrong. We live in an age of shock election results. And there's no reason at all why French voters won't get up on Sunday morning and think, well, we've had 5 years of Macron, let's try somebody new, let's try Marine Le Pen. It could happen. But at the moment, again, the opinion polls are normally a pretty good guide over here. And it looks like Emmanuel Macron's on his way to becoming the first president in 20 years to win a second term.
What did you think of their performances during the debate?
Well, they're very interesting. Marine Le Pen admitted that 5 years ago in a similar debate, she was appalling. She said that herself. And she said she went away for 5 years to learn about macroeconomics, all these very, very important elements to becoming a head of state and indeed the president of Fifth Republic. She was convinced she would improve on basic facts and figures about how to run an economy. And she did. She was quite good. She wasn't picked up on any significant mistakes or anything like that. But interestingly, Emmanuel Macron really went for the jugular in the way that you would have thought she would have done to him. I mean, he was all over her, saying that she's funded by Russia, effectively, that she will start a civil war with her policies against ethnic minority and religious communities here in France. For example, she wants to ban women from wearing veils in public, and indeed Jewish men wearing kippahs in public. So he really attacked her like that, and you would have thought the snarling person in this debate would have been the pretender, the person who wants to take over, but it was in fact Emmanuel Macron. So I would say that he probably did slightly better because of that, a little bit more energy. The polls suggested that he did rather better in the debate, but again, anything can happen on Sunday. That's the main point to come away from it.
OK, look, really good to talk to you, Peter. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be chatting over the weekend, I have no doubt.
Yes.
But for now, thank you.
Absolutely. Look, keep those views coming in as well, if you will. We were talking very much about the housing crisis and the fact that, and we've already heard from somebody who said they're really struggling, even in a council house, to pay the rent. Whether you believe that social housing has to be... We're building houses. We keep saying we must build more houses. And I see vast tower blocks going up like mushrooms, but they're very, very expensive flats in them. Very expensive. I'm not sure who's meant to be able to afford them.
No, this is a problem. Nothing is cheap at
So
the
what's the
moment.
answer to the housing crisis? And young people at the moment who... I mean, my boys are always saying they don't see how they're ever going to get on the housing market because they can barely afford to pay the rents.
The trouble is rents end up being more expensive than a mortgage.
Well, and they're not getting you anywhere either.
No, this is the problem. And if you've got the magic solution, we'd love to hear from you. GBViews at gbnews.uk. But stay with us, we've got plenty more to come, including the very latest sport with Paul Coyte.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Friday's forecast. We're looking at sunny spells, particularly across the north of the UK through Friday. A few showers across the south, but noticeably windy for everyone. And the reason for this is low pressure sits to the south of the UK, high to the north. This is allowing a strong easterly wind to develop right across the country. So noticeably feeling cooler compared to recent days. Friday morning, a bright start for many, though thicker cloud across central southern parts of the UK. This slowly drifting its way westwards as we move through the morning and into the afternoon. Showers developing where the cloud starts to break up. Some of these could be heavy at times, but the Midlands, North Wales, northwards, plenty of sunshine to come for much of the day, though some low cloud along eastern coast. And with that brisk easterly breeze here, temperatures peg back 11, 12, 13 degrees. Best of the sunshine across western areas, highs 16 or 17, so a little cooler than they have been of late. Through the evening, we should lose the showers across the south and southwest, but only to be replaced by a lot of cloud across the country, some mist and murk over the hills too, perhaps thick enough for the odd spot of drizzle. And in between, there will be some clear skies, but overall, temperatures not quite as low tonight compared to recent nights with a bit more cloud around, which means generally a cloudier start to Saturday morning compared to recent mornings. Bits and pieces of drizzle moving in off the North Sea. And through the day, a lot of cloud around. The best of the sunshine will be across western areas. Perhaps later on into the afternoon, some more sunshine developing across southern Scotland, northern England. But one or two heavy showers for the Midlands, Wales here, but hopefully in between some brighter skies. And where we can see the sunshine, temperatures 16 or 17, but still that brisk wind down the east, keeping temperatures here near at 11 or 12. The wind should ease a little into Sunday, but there will be a lot of cloud around, the best of the sunshine in the west. Similar on Monday, but noticeably cooler as we head into Monday, with temperatures starting to fall away.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It's 7:28, morning to you, whether you're watching us on TV or listening on the radio. It's good to have you with us this morning. Now, our main news is about the Prime Minister suffering what some are calling a humiliating blow to his authority yesterday when his plan to block a further inquiry into the Partygate scandal was scuppered at the last minute by his own MPs.
Yes, so the Prime Minister now faces an inquiry by a Commons committee over claims that he misled Parliament over the lockdown gatherings, Partygate, as it were. Potentially a resigning matter, of course, under the Ministerial Code.
Well, we can talk about this with Peter Kyle, Shadow Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. It's good to see you this morning. Look, I mean, I know there are procedures that need to be gone through. There are questions that need to be asked. I mean, that's fair enough in a sense. But, I mean, what do you make of the voting public here who are just absolutely fed up to the back teeth of this?
Well, it's good to be with you too, but I agree with you. We're all fed up to the back teeth of this. The Prime Minister should have gone ages ago over this. You know, this is not a concoction from the Labour Party. He's lost his authority because he couldn't even get his own MPs to support him yesterday. The police have fined him. He has a criminal sanction against him. His own party is turning against him. With a majority of 80, he can't even get his own amendment voted through, so he had to withdraw it at the last minute. This is a Prime Minister with no authority. What this whole Partygate debacle has exposed is Boris Johnson's character flaws. He is reckless, he's untrustworthy, and he lies, and he is incompetent. These things have been exposed during the Partygate scandal, and what that means is those same character flaws are the reasons why we have, for example, a low-growth, high-tax economy, why we've got 7 million people waiting for an NHS operation, why 56,000 people, victims, are waiting for their day in court. Our public services in our country is being badly run, and the Partygate scandal exposed the character flaws that underlines all these failures.
He only has to visit Ukraine, though, or as he is in India at the moment, to make nearly every front page picture of the press. He's still very, very popular, whatever Partygate holds for him, don't you think?
Actually, I don't see the evidence for his popularity. I know that he does electrify some people, but he's a very divisive character. And of course, most people are having experiences. You know, this Friday, for example, people's paychecks are going to go down. When they land, they're going to have less money in their pockets, but all the bills are going up. This is a consequence of Boris Johnson's management of our economy, or mismanagement, I would characterise it. So I think people have a direct connection now to the impact of Boris Johnson's character flaws, and of course they can compare the way they behaved throughout the pandemic to the way that Boris Johnson behaved, because it's now likely that number 10 Downing Street is the residence in the country that has faced the most amount of fines through the COVID period. So the residence in which all of the laws were being made for COVID was the same residence that had the most amount of fines against people within it. You know, this is no way to run a country. the rest of the world is looking at us and they are horrified by what they're seeing. So Boris Johnson going abroad at this moment in time is simply globalising the scandal that he has brought upon himself back here in Britain.
With all of this, I mean, we always get emails on this matter, and so maybe you can clarify it for us. You know, there's pictures of Boris Johnson, you know, where there's a bag of crisps and a bottle of wine on a table, and that's classed as a party. Why is Keir Starmer being pictured with a work colleague and a bottle of beer, not a party?
Because they were different times, they were in different points in the pandemic, and the police investigated both circumstances and completely, entirely exonerated Keir and said that there was no rules broken at any time, and yet they imposed a criminal sanction on Boris Johnson, and there are 12 more cases that are being investigated. So the spin that's come out of Number 10 to try and diminish it, saying, for example, that it was only 8 minutes, what I would have given to have had 8 minutes with my dad on his 80th birthday, I didn't get to do that because I stuck by the rules and my dad insisted on sticking by the rules himself. So he was alone on his 80th birthday. So everyone in this country has a story like that. So when Boris Johnson tries to diminish it at the outset, don't forget, we've got 3 inquiries that are outstanding. He's had 1 criminal sanction already, and there is the likelihood of having several more. But the key importance of this is what I said before. It has exposed the key character flaws in our Prime Minister, and we are all paying a price for it in the running of our public services and in the money in people's pockets.
What's the atmosphere like at the moment on the Labour benches? Do you smell blood?
Well, we're unified, we are coordinated, and we are really focused on presenting a better vision for Britain going forward. We are optimistic about the future of Britain, if only we can get the policies in place. So in the run-up to the local elections on May the 5th, where the public has the best opportunity to send a message to Boris Johnson, we've already released the economic plan that would make sure we can tackle the cost of living crisis and help those in greatest need, and we can get our economy firing on all cylinders. We've also, in the last fortnight, launched a crime plan so that we can get police hubs into the communities who need it the most, and we can start tackling some of the really chronic problems we've got with crime in this country. So what we're focused on is presenting a credible alternative that points to a better Britain, a better future for Britain going forward. And I can tell you, we are really energised, and this week in Parliament I've noticed a more unified, coordinated a sort of team, if you like. We're working on a team in a way I've not experienced since I came into Parliament in 2015, and I suspect for probably some time before that as well.
So unification and excitement you didn't feel under Jeremy Corbyn, who we've got to say is demanding he's let back into the Parliamentary Labour Party now. Is it time to let him back in, do you think?
That's a matter for the Chief Whip. That's a matter for Keir Starmer, and there are processes that deal with that. But Jeremy is not leader of the Labour Party, he's not a Labour MP, and he has no influence over the Labour Party or our policies right now. You can see Keir Starmer's leadership this week when he's spoken 3 times at the dispatch box. If you compare his performance to that of Boris Johnson, you see that Labour is under new management.
Forgive me for interrupting, but
we have the policies that are really...
It's not your decision what happens with Jeremy Corbyn, but what do you think should happen?
You have been reporting on politics for long enough to know that somebody in my position does not second-guess the Chief Whip. You know that, so there's no way I'm going to comment on what I think. It is not. It is simply not in my purview to even communicate it or even to have a thought on this. This is the role of the Chief Whip.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's worth a try, though. Peter Carl, really good to talk to you. Thank you
very much. Yeah.
Oh, if only. Never mind.
You have to keep trying, though, don't you? Right, we move on then, of course, to the other huge story that just won't come to an end, I guess. It's day 58, would you believe, of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And President Vladimir Putin has claimed victory over the besieged city of Mariupol.
However, contrary to Putin's claims, reports from the United States say there's no evidence that Mariupol has completely fallen, adding that Ukrainian forces still hold some ground.
So for more on this, let's speak to journalist Mirso Babu, who is back in the Ukrainian capital. Very good morning to you. What is the latest on Mariupol, then? We gather from the mayor that there's still 100,000 civilians who need to be evacuated.
Good morning. Nice to be back on the program. Indeed, Mariupol is the hot debate at the moment in Ukraine, here where I'm at the moment. Some people, Ukrainians on the Ukrainian side, are still saying the resistance is still taking place inside Mariupol. But what we've seen from the pro-Russian media is a victory claim. It's still very much debated. It's still unconfirmed 100%. What I've seen on Telegram just minutes before I went live is a short statement from one of the military heads of that resistance inside that steel mill factory, saying that they're still holding on. That is obviously unverified information, but it was on the official Telegram account of the mayor's office in Mariupol, which so far provided accurate and verified information up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's hugely difficult, isn't it, as you say, to fully understand exactly what is going on. But how much concern is there now about what the Russians are actually doing? I mean, specifically around Mariupol or not, it does seem like they are regrouping and setting their sights on a much more targeted campaign now.
Well, so the fact remains that there are still a lot of civilians in Mariupol that their fate is not decided, that we're not sure what's going to happen to them. To the larger extent, what's happening at the moment is that both sides are regrouping for what it seems to be a decisive battle in the eastern part of the country. President Zelensky said he clearly does not want to negotiate or give up on Donbass, on the two regions, the two so-called separatist regions. On the other hand, we've seen a new appointment of a new general with a significant experience in the eastern part of the country, in charge of what was going on in the last years throughout this so-called latent war, if you want to call it like this, but also with some significant experience in Syria, which obviously going to bring this war to some sort of a, it seems to some sort of a battle for each city in the eastern part of the country, each village, each neighborhood, obviously with a huge toll to civilians and casualties among women, children, elderly people who cannot still get out of the eastern part of the country.
Okay, Mercia, we're going to leave it there, but it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Let's just get a quick update from the former head of counter-terrorism at the MOD, Major General Chip Chapman. Good to see you, Chip. Look, it seems there's been a strategy here all along, and certainly around places like Mariupol, of just trying to undermine any resistance to or any armed resistance to the Russians. Yet clearly in Mariupol, at the state it's in, that still isn't working.
Yeah, well, tactical battles are fought and sequenced to achieve operational objective. The operational objective in Mariupol is to actually join Crimea across to the separatist states. So they want to do that. So not capturing it at the moment doesn't necessarily allow them to do that, and also provides still an open flank. What is interesting about Mariupol is really it shows the ability to reach out and destroy of the Russians is greater than their ability to reach out and capture and then hold and then potentially govern. And that is the problem they're going to have in all the places that they attack on their forthcoming offensive, because I don't think they're actually in full-on offensive mode at the moment. They're in preparation of the battlefield with large artillery concentrations, ready for what they want to be the decisive operational manoeuvre, that is above the tactical level battle. And if that doesn't succeed, we'll be back to the future in phase 2. That is that we will see attrition predominate and things will regress to the mean. That is a concept called entropy, where they'll achieve no great breakthroughs and will have a long bloody campaign with no likelihood of decisive victory for people. And of course, one of the reasons that fighting stops is either decisive military victory or an improbability of victory.
Meanwhile, we are told that there are Ukrainian soldiers being trained now in Britain. What do we make of that? Does that suggest that we are obviously donating more vehicles for which they're being trained, but that it is a sort of different sort of war we're preparing ourselves for?
Well, General Mark Milley, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has always said that he thinks this would go on for a long time. So your left of arc is that people said 10 days ago this would last 3 weeks. The right of arc, this could still go on for years. And we've always talked about the war after the war. That is, after a significant period of major combat operations, there could be partisan operations that follow that. I think if you separate the American support, which they announced last night, from the British training at the moment. The British training is for a thing called protected patrol vehicles. They are not vehicles that are tanks and will fight in the front line. They're armed with 7.62 machine guns and .5 caliber machine guns. They don't have major tank barrels, neither are they protected vehicles. So they will get you on the line of communication towards the frontline area. They are not a vehicle which could be fought. More significant is the American announcement last night of killer drones being given to the Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians can be trained quickly on those, and they're being given additional artillery. And more importantly, for the first time, it seems that they have available more T-72 tanks than the Russians in theatre. That could be significant. But like all these things, it's the level of training, the level of leadership, and how you execute operations which really decides things, along with your morale. And one of the miscalculations that Putin made was that he did not believe Ukraine was a nation. Armies don't fight wars, nations fight wars, and this is a nation mobilised.
Yeah. Major General Chip Chapman, as always, good to get your analysis. Thank you.
Thank you. And Paul Coit has joined us because there's a lot of sport to talk about at the moment.
There is a fair bit of sport around at the moment, yeah. I mean, there's a big fight, which is the Heavyweight World Championship, which is going on tomorrow. But the big story at the moment, as far as Manchester United are concerned, see, the thing is, it would have been nice not to talk about Manchester United because Eamon's not here, but it is the big story, and this is Erik ten Hag, who is going to be the new manager of Manchester United. So we've had, we're looking at 5. There we are. Look, blimey, that really is a very impressive video that they've put together. Look, very, very sexy there.
And for those of you listening on the radio, yes, this is a real sort of promotional video for the man.
It is. It's all very quickly cut. Lots of good pictures of Erik, and everything looks very exciting. It's just to try and get Manchester United fans to get excited again for the 5th time since Alex Ferguson retired. It's like Alex Ferguson knew when was the time to go, because after him, it really has been very tricky and a poison chalice for anybody to take over. So Erik ten Hag, just a few words about him. I asked someone, actually a Dutch football journalist yesterday, and I was asking, so why would he want to do this? Apart from the fact that it's Manchester United, it's one of the biggest teams in the world.
Well, that's why, surely.
Well, you would kind of think so, but it seems that everybody's just doomed whenever they go there. It just doesn't seem to work out, because he's a man independently wealthy, comes from a very wealthy family. It's not about the money. He's never going to have any trouble there. But he's doing very well in Ajax. He's been there for 5 years. It's a different league in Holland. If you look at the Eredivisie, it's nowhere near the quality of the Premier League. So to move over to here, it's a huge job. So obviously it's very attractive because managers have egos and they'll think, you know what, I
want to be the one.
I'm going to be the one that turns it round. Yeah. So it seems like he's the sort of chap that is not going to suffer fools. He's not going to be like the relief teacher like Ralph Rangnick is at the moment, where you have all the kids at the school. They're going, well, we can get away with this. It doesn't matter. You're not going to be here long. This guy's not going to take any nonsense. He knows what he wants to do. He's been made assurances by Manchester United that he wants to do it his way, but they need to be given time. And if he's not given time, it's not going to work. Yeah. But in football, there's no such thing as being given time. Because
no, I tell you what,
down the line,
he looks, I mean, I don't know him, but he looks from that promotional video as though he's got plenty of personality.
You know what? These promotional videos even make me look good. Trust me. But,
I was hoping that maybe that will show through and that he'll make it exciting.
I agree. No, he is. No, you're right. He's tough. He does have personality, and he is someone that he's really going to have to really show leadership there, and people are going to have to listen to him because there's so much player power these days. But like I say, it's like the relief teacher at school. If you go in and the kids don't respect you, you're not hiding to nothing. Yeah. Times that by 100, and there you've got a Premier League football team.
Yeah. So a quick word about Wimbledon. This Russia ban. Yeah,
this is really continuing, and it was announced yesterday that Russia. The Russian players and Belarusian players would not be allowed to play at Wimbledon. Now, we've seen bans of national teams, we've seen bans of football teams that come from the country, but when it comes to actual independent players, when I say independent, this is what you would expect to happen, that they would want to be seen as independent.
The tennis players don't play for their country. It's not like the Olympics. They play just because they're professional players.
They do, but they do still appear under a flag and under a national anthem, which has gone in other tennis tournaments. So they are playing as independent players. So, I mean, I've got to be honest with you, I'm torn between the two. I like the idea. I don't want to see the country celebrated in any way. I don't want to see Putin to be able to use a Wimbledon champion, which Medvedev could well be.
But Martina Navratilova was making the point that if those Russian players well, frankly, it's both ways, but if they are to say anything about this, they get their families in trouble at home.
Correct.
And they're scared about that, and they're scared for their own profession as well. And they love their country. They may not love what it's doing, but of course they still love their country. And she said it's putting them in an impossible position.
I think the impossible position is to put them into the position where they would be expected to speak out against what was happening. But we've seen it with Rublev, we've seen it with other players as well. They've written things on cameras, for example, words like, I want peace, no war. It's not actually saying my country is doing the wrong thing. It's all very well saying... So anyway, there was talk that the government said, well, if you can actually make an announcement denouncing what's going on in Ukraine, well, then you could be able to play. But then we have the situation, as you just mentioned, Anne. You can't do that because then you've got families and it's going to affect...
So in a way, the decision's been made for them, which is easier for them, but it's very hard for them. I mean, the number 2 seed is Russian, isn't he?
Exactly, yeah, and there are some great players that won't be allowed to play. In France, they're allowing it at the French Open, but Wimbledon, and they spent a long time thinking about this because at first they were thinking, well, maybe the war's going to be over by the time Wimbledon comes around, but it's not been the case. They've made the decision, and for the moment, that's how it's going to stand.
Paul, guess off.
Yeah. Oh, right, OK.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'd like your views anyway. GBNews at gbnews.uk.
I wonder what you said to me for a second.
You're back a bit later.
I will be back in a second.
Double do's of Paul today. Stay with us. We're going to be on your doorstep in Portsmouth in a couple of minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's 2 questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
You're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne. It is 7:51.
And it's now time for On Your Doorstep.
So Ellie Costello's On Your Doorstep in Portsmouth for us this morning. Morning, Ellie.
Good morning, Stephen and Anne, and happy Friday. We're in Portsmouth all morning talking to local people about the issues that matter to them. And just over, beyond those houses over this side, I can actually see the Spinnaker Tower and the historic dockyard. Lots of wonderful things to see in Portsmouth, including HMS Victory, which is the ship that Nelson died of. So if you haven't been to Portsmouth before, it's a fantastic place to come and visit. So I think I'm going to knock on this door. This is number 6, and see who's behind the door. We're also going to be getting his opinions on the stories that we've been talking about on the programme this morning. Good morning. You are live on TV and radio. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Richard, yeah. How are we doing? We all right?
Yeah, we're all good. Thank you so much. Got a lovely home here, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Very nice. So what do you do as a living?
I'm a painter and decorator.
That explains the lovely home then. I'll pop myself down as well. So how long have you lived in Portsmouth for then?
Oh, well, my life, 41 years now. So, yeah, it's a nice city. It's lovely.
Yeah, what do you like about Portsmouth?
It's kind of like a very community-based city, if I'm honest. Everybody knows everybody. Yeah, it's a very friendly place. It's lovely. Yeah, really good.
And you're very friendly. You're
I like to think so.
A Pompey lad. What do you do for fun then, Richard, outside the job?
Obviously, with Portsmouth and, like I say, the very community-based city, they're into their football and great supporters from Portsmouth Football Club, and that kind of made me make the decision to get into football myself. So I run a football team or football club. Hawks in the Community over in Havant with my brother, so that's great for the community as well. So yeah, it's
amazing you've got the time.
Yeah,
to do that as well. And can I just say as well, amazing location. You can literally see the Spinnaker Tower.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, it's lovely. Like I say, you really can. It's beautiful. You can see all the sea, all the boats going in and out. The Spinnaker Tower's there. It's fantastic.
It's a great spot. It really is. Well, I wanted to ask you about a couple of things that we've been talking about on the programme this morning. I actually just picked up your local paper, which is called The News.
The News, that's right.
The News.
The News.
Great name for a paper. This is on page 11 on The News. It's City Tory wants trust restored. So this is your MP. Penny Mordaunt, she is saying that she's throwing all of her support behind Boris Johnson. She says we need to get over the Partygate scandal. What do you think about that, Richard?
I kind of agree, actually. You know, the whole world's been through the pandemic. It's been a horrible 2 years for everybody. After all, there's a war going on now as well, and I just think it's time to kind of put this to bed, get the support behind our Prime Minister, let him deal with the issues that's going on in the world, and move on, really, you know?
I'm sure there's many people that would agree with you. I also wanted to ask you about the rising cost of living, because as a painter decorator, that must be something that's really impacting you.
Obviously, fuel prices going sky high. It has a knock-on effect to everything, with obviously the deliveries of the plane and everything else. It really does have a knock-on effect, and to be honest, everything's on the rise now. It's no surprise, really.
Yeah, making it really difficult for lots of people. Well, Richard, thank you so much for having us in a lovely home. Really great to chat to you this morning. And Stephen and Anne, stay with me, because in the next hour, I'm visiting a pancake house. We're going to be trying out some pancakes.
Ellie, thank you very much indeed.
That sounds really nice.
That does sound very nice, doesn't it?
We mustn't talk about... actually, we were talking earlier about soup, making soup.
Oh, yes.
I tell you what, the air conditioning is so cold in this studio that I could do with a cup of soup.
It is. A chicken noodle for me, low in calories too, says Nevena. And Michael says, I can't afford to make soup. I have to wait until it comes down to 20p a tin at the supermarket.
Yeah, if it really was 20p for a tin of soup, then it would be worth it, I suppose. But other than that, yeah.
And Jackie...
It doesn't cost much to make some soup.
Jackie says, could you please mention it's Greek Orthodox Easter this weekend? Happy Easter, everyone.
Yes, happy Easter.
I didn't know it ran on different dates.
Karen says, me and my daughter are both vegetarian and I make lentil soup with lots of garlic and herbs, blitzed and eaten with fresh tiger bread.
Ooh,
could do with that right now for breakfast.
Nice. That sounds lovely, actually.
Morning from Inverness, says Marion. Hi there. I am Scottish and I back the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. A lot of reasonable people will want to keep this intelligent statesman in office.
You see, a lot of people would disagree with you, though, Marion, saying, well, they don't think he is an intelligent. I think he's a blusterer, a bluffer in all of this. Don't trust what he's doing. But
he is intelligent, though, isn't he?
Oh, he is a
clever guy.
Very clever man. He knows his stuff. He knows his classics.
He certainly does. And he knows his Churchill. And I think that's where all his bluster comes from.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Wouldn't it be interesting to see someone like Churchill in this situation? Because he obviously wasn't analysed in the same way.
I mean, there were lots of people in the Tory party that absolutely hated Churchill and didn't want him to be Prime Minister, didn't want him to be leader at all, never forgave him for his mistakes made in the First World War. And yet, look what happened. So, I don't know. How can you really tell somebody's character like that and how they'll stand up to the challenges?
Yeah, don't know. Aussie Beth. Oh, we've had you on before, Aussie Beth. Morning to you. You're both a little bit of sunshine on what is a rainy, dreary afternoon here in the New South Wales East Coast. Oh, how nice to be down there, even if the weather's grim. You get my weekend off to a great start. To that end, I've been online to vote for your programme in the Trick Awards. Best of luck in the voting.
Isn't that fantastic? Thank you very much for that's the Television and Radio Industries Club Awards, for which we have been nominated.
Yes.
But isn't it wonderful that somebody from Australia has gone online to vote for it?
I hope it counts from Australia.
Of course it will.
If you want to vote, go to trick.org.uk. A little plug. We're on a multi-channel news programme, and then you can also vote for us under News Presenter as well. So there you go. So it's always nice. I just want to... We won't win, probably.
Are we allowed to vote?
I just want to stick it to those people who laughed us off.
Yes. Oh, yes. Always nice to do that.
That would be very, very nice.
Yeah. No, please vote. If you want to, please vote. It would be nice.
Look, we've got lots more coming your way in just a moment, so do stay with us.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
MPs order a third investigation into whether or not the Prime Minister misled Parliament over the Partygate affair.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock on Friday the 22nd of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
We're live across the UK on your TV, on your radio and online. Coming up this morning, Boris Johnson holds talks with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New Delhi, but will his trip be overshadowed by the Commons vote into whether he lied to the House of Commons?
The mayor of Mariupol has said there are still 100,000 civilians still trapped in the war-torn region awaiting evacuation as Vladimir Putin orders his troops to seal off the steelworks in the city.
Voters go to the polls on Sunday in the French presidential election. So as campaigning continues, Emmanuel Macron maintains a lead in the polls over his rival Marine Le Pen.
And our lovely Ellie Costello is on your doorstep this morning in Portsmouth. She's going to be seeing what stories are being talked about by the good people of this famous port city. And doesn't it look lovely there?
Oh, beautiful. Now, loads of you getting in touch this morning. We're going to run through lots of your views before 9:30, and you can join in as well. Just drop us an email, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Loads of people getting in touch about housing. Actually, it's really got you going this morning, looking at whether there should be more social housing.
What we used to call council housing, something like that. Because I think everybody agrees. You see flats being built, they're going up like wildfire, and but they're all so expensive. They're not for what they should be for.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's interesting. Chris has been in touch. Morning to you, Chris. Says there should be a cap on rent that can be charged. Set it at £450 per month. This would get rid of those using housing to make money. But if people aren't making money on it, Chris, why are they going to bother doing it? That's why you would need the social housing, I guess.
Yes, I think so. I mean, Paul says, I moved out of a private rent in February and was paying £595 per month for a two-bed house. The young family that moved into the house are now paying £725 per month. How can the landlord justify putting the rent up by £130 a month?
Darren in Gloucestershire, morning Darren, said, I lived in a council house for the first 23 years of my life. It was wonderful back then in many ways, but both my parents and me were more than happy to get out, buy our own homes and generally improve our lives. It's interesting. I mean, I can understand why people want to... Is there a stigma attached to living in a council house?
I really don't think so. There used to be, but I think then we discovered that there are actually some very, very good council housing estates, and maybe we shouldn't build them like that. I mean, they've been looking at different ways of providing social housing that isn't just in one estate or something. And obviously some estates got very, very bad reputations.
Yes, they did. But I mean, say my grandparents had a council house, and my mum and 4 children grew up in it. It was only a small sort of 2 up, 2 down. But they lived there all their lives, and they were proud to be there. I mean, they bought it when they got under the right to buy scheme, but you know, they were proud to live there. Nice little house.
Jennifer said, I bought my council house and I got a 50% discount. I wouldn't have been able to afford it otherwise because I'm a single parent. And Carol says, my mother bought her council house. The houses were offered at discounted prices to long-term council tenants who had paid rent for many years. In my mum's case, about 20 years. She wouldn't have been able to buy a house in any other way otherwise. She only sold it when she moved into sheltered housing, but had real trouble selling it because of its construction. It's an interesting point. Too.
Yeah, Julie says, I think a good solution to the problem for younger people is that the government should share the mortgage 50% with a good interest rate. So when the property's sold, the homeowner and the government take 50% of the profit each. I mean, there has been schemes of the shared housing scheme does that sort of thing, or at least it did. Whether it still exists or not, I don't know, but that certainly was around at one stage. I don't know if it was 50-50. But yeah, that's not a bad idea because it's an investment for the people buying their half and it's an investment for the government with the other half.
Yeah.
So you can't lose, can
Yes,
you?
exactly. Are we doing enough to provide more social housing? That's a good question for you, please. Keep your views coming in, gbviews@gbnews.uk. Do you remember earlier we had a message from Dean who said that every time he heard the P word, Partygate, he was going to drink a shot. And we said, but by now he must be absolutely plastered.
So he probably is.
Sarah says, I'm watching with my 4-year-old in Liverpool. She's fed up with the names of Boris Johnson, Keir Starmer or any other politicians. It's just too much like politics pollution. I love you too, though.
Oh, well, thank you. But I can only apologise, Sarah, because our main news today Is Boris Johnson suffering another blow as MPs voted to open a formal inquiry into whether he knowingly misled Parliament?
Yeah, the government attempted to delay the investigation, but even some of the Prime Minister's closest allies have now turned against him, including former Brexit Minister Steve Baker. Here's what he had to say.
The reason that he is not long gone is because removing a sitting Prime Minister is an extremely grave matter, and goodness knows people will know I've had something to do with that too. All of us should approach such things with reverence and awe and an awareness of the difficulty of doing it and the potential consequences, and that's why I've been tempted to forgive. But I have to say now, the possibility of that really, for me, has gone. I have to say I'm sorry that for not obeying the letter and the spirit, and I think we have heard that the Prime Minister did know what the letter was. The Prime Minister now should be long gone. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'll certainly vote for this motion, but really, the Prime Minister should just know the gig's up.
Well, the Prime Minister wasn't able to fire back directly because he's actually in India at the moment. He's on an official visit to build new defence and energy partnerships with the Indian Prime Minister.
Well, our political correspondent Tom Harwood is here in the studio. What do we make of this, Tom? Because there certainly seems to be a split. From what we get from our viewers, there's a split between what the public are thinking about all of this and the politicians who are perhaps smelling blood in the water.
Well, it's interesting looking at around what general opinion thinks versus what sections of opinion think, because broadly, although there was a bit of an assuaging of that anger as bigger issues came to the fore. When that fine landed, various polls have been done across the whole British public, which does tend to suggest that British people are very concerned about the conduct of the Prime Minister, and most British people do think the Prime Minister should resign. However, then you get to the people who are very interested in the detail of this thing, who may well be looking at the particulars of the alleged events rather than just hearing the word party, and they might have a different view. But it's very, very hard for the Prime Minister to try and explain what went on, because every explanation sounds like an excuse. There are various points that outriders for the Prime Minister can say, that various supportive MPs of his may well have been making those cases. But if Boris Johnson says anything other than sorry, he sounds like he's trying to get away from it. So that's a very tricky position. And what we found this week is with the Prime Minister actually away, 4,500 miles away in New Delhi today, really what has happened is a loosening of that support in Parliament. Potentially this trip enabled the chaos that we saw yesterday, and it was chaos. Let's not forget the government laid down an amendment to Labour's motion, which would have delayed this all until after the Sue Gray report comes out. And yet, 20 minutes before the debate was to begin, at 11:10 yesterday morning, the government pulled their amendment and said they would no longer be whipping their MPs to vote in any particular way. They'd give their MPs a free vote on that amendment. Now, the only reasonable explanation as to why they have done that is because more than 40 MPs, and it takes 40 Conservative MPs to overturn that majority of 80. Of course, if 40 vote the other way, that sort of almost counts as two votes. You're taking one from there and giving one the other way. It must be that more than 40 Tory MPs told the whips they would not back the government, that they would vote with the opposition. And that means that we're getting very close to that magic number of 54 or 56 MPs who, if they were to write to Sir Graham Brady, that could start the mechanics of a leadership contest. It's very feeble territory.
Talk about playing politics with all of this. Is there then a sense that 40 rebels would have been more damaging than just letting this go through?
I think one of the biggest problems, talking to MPs on the terrace, very frustrated MPs in Parliament yesterday. Of course, Thursday, normally MPs go back to their constituents in the afternoon. Normally, MPs are able to get on with with constituency business, and many of them had to cancel constituency events yesterday. So Keir Starmer cancelled an event in Wales, and many other MPs who had surgeries or visits or everything else, they were stuck in Westminster. Very frustrated MPs, and some of them who I was talking to yesterday were suggesting that the whips told them on Wednesday that there'd be a slightly different amendment, because the wording of the amendment seems to have annoyed Conservative MPs. This is the government amendment to the Labour motion, because it wasn't just about delaying there would also be a fresh vote. So some Conservative MPs felt that that opened a slight trapdoor to getting rid of this altogether rather than just delaying it. And that sort of, they felt that they had a guarantee from the whips that this would be the motion. And the motion turned out to be slightly different. That seemed to cause some anger, a sense of chaos, a sense of disjointed government, and of course the Prime Minister being so far away, no clear answers in any short time. So it all just collapsed shortly before the debate. And that meant that there wasn't a vote by numbers. There was a vote last night by acclamation. No one walking through the division lobbies just shouting aye, and no one shouted no. It went through unanimously by acclamation.
It's interesting looking at Claire Fox, Baroness Fox, was talking to Alistair Stewart yesterday and made the really interesting point. Perhaps something happened that it shouldn't have done, perhaps there have been mistakes made and, fines have been paid and all the rest of it. But she said there is no appetite when people are struggling as they are. She just says that she just doesn't believe that there is the appetite for this and that people will look at this as parliamentary procedure which is detracting from the real problems that real people are facing.
And certainly when we're talking about Labour motions, amendments, whether or not an opposition motion can go forward, the mechanics of Parliament, how the vote was conducted, this sounds so remote from what people are actually facing out there in the country. And it is a genuine concern of many Conservative MPs, because a lot of Conservative MPs are very unhappy with the Prime Minister, but they're equally unhappy with the idea of dragging out a leadership contest for months at this moment in time. Politicians squabbling amongst themselves, legislative business being lost. Of course, there'll be a guillotine motion in not that long a time for the new session of Parliament, and at that point all the legislation falls away and they have to start all over again. There's actually a lot of stuff that needs to be getting on with in Parliament, and when all of this distraction, a whole day yesterday on a debate that went through on a vote of acclamation anyway, it's clear that there is a lot of introspection right now. And that's one of the strongest arguments that the supporters of the Prime Minister has, because whether or not a number of Conservative MPs may want to remove the Prime Minister, they don't quite want to do it now.
Yeah, it's a bad time, isn't it? Yeah.
Tom, thank you. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on.
Yeah, actually, that's one thing to ask you is, and do let us know, gbviews@gbnews.uk, is does any of this squabbling and nonsense change the way you're going to vote in the upcoming elections? Has it changed your mind about who you admire and who you don't, or who you want in your local council or whatever? Love to know what you think.
Yeah, be interesting. Let's bring you up to date with the headlines at 13 minutes past 8, and a German national linked to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has been identified as a formal suspect by Portuguese authorities. Officers haven't named the individual, but in 2020, German police said they were investigating a man known as Christian B in connection with the disappearance of the 3-year-old in Praia de Luz in May 2007.
Boris Johnson will hold talks with his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, in New Delhi today as his tour of India continues. The Prime Minister is braced for further questions, of course, about alleged lockdown breaches in parties in Number 10, and that's after MPs ordered a third investigation into the Partygate affair.
The Mayor of Mariupol has appealed for a full evacuation of the southern Ukrainian city, which, according to President Putin, is now controlled by Russian forces. It's understood about 100,000 people are still there. Vadim Boychenko says Vladimir Putin has destroyed about 90% of the city and that it isn't easy for those still there to get out.
There are still 100,000 people in this city who, for the second day in a row, are waiting for evacuation. And they give us just such a tiny number of buses. Like it was yesterday, they said there would be 90 buses, but only 7 arrived.
Well, in an attempt to tackle food waste, the Co-op is going to scrap use-by dates on all of its own brand yoghurts. They will be replaced with best-before dates instead, which the supermarket says will give consumers confidence to use their judgment, instead of throwing away unopened yoghurts.
I think best before dates are better. However, of all the things to change it on,
Yogurts.
Yogurt would have been bottom of my list because
yogurt's.
It's got a.
It's a natural. What are we talking about? Yeah, natural stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's got the culture. That's
the word.
Unlike me, it's got culture.
Yeah.
And so that'd be one thing I'd be a bit more wary of.
It's a bit like a supermarket saying, "Oh, we're so good, we're changing the sell-by dates on cheese."
Yeah.
You know, so something that has one of those cultures, and sort of you make up your own mind about when you want to eat it, almost, don't you?
Oh, well, let us know what you think. Now, maybe you can write a review about us online.
Oh, no.
That would be maybe nice, maybe not. But soon, paying for writing or hosting fake reviews online will be against the law.
Yes, a study shows the average UK household spends around £900 a year influenced by online reviews. A new law will soon come into effect that makes those paid fake reviews illegal.
Well, Senior Fraud Risk Manager Adon Fido, Dimitri Dorgan, joins us now. Good to see you this morning. How do we know, Dimitri, at the moment at least, whether something is fake or not? Can we actually tell?
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me on. There are a few tell signs which can tell us whether an interaction is genuine or not. Here at Onfido, we work with businesses around the world to make sure that they can trust their users and that users can trust the platforms that they're on, with operating in spaces all the way from dating to commercial platforms. We use a multitude of types of signals to make sure that you're dealing with a genuine human being that has good intentions. We've developed our own technology to perform identity verification using a picture of yourself, or such as a selfie or a short video, together with your documents issued by a government to make sure that you're the right person. In addition to that, there are a host of other types of information which you can use, such as IP data, geolocation, etc. And I think that it's right about time that consumers can stand to benefit from using this technology in the space that influences consumer buying patterns, to be completely honest. I'm sure we've all had the experience of going online on any kind of website and trying to buy a product only to scroll through tens of reviews that seem completely irrelevant, that have anything from loads of spelling mistakes all the way to descriptions of a product that isn't what you're trying to buy at all. So I think it's really, really good that we're seeing this development. There are obviously, I think, pros and cons to this. Maybe one of the cons would be that consumers would not want to or find it an extra friction to leave a review online. So that might mean that businesses that deal with this will have a smaller volume of reviews to deal with. But at the same time, it might cost some of these businesses more money and more time to make sure that the reviews are authentic. But I think that there are a lot of cons for the common consumer. So there are a lot of examples of things going wrong, for example, such as review bombs, which is when a small group of individuals or one person goes on a smear campaign and just leaves hosts of bad reviews, sometimes trying to push traffic onto their own product or their own service, which I find to be an unfair market practice. Another advantage might be that with authentic reviews, companies might have a better chance of building rapport with their end consumers and taking into account the feedback that they give to develop better products and better services that in the end are going to benefit all of the users.
Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, and we'll post a review in due course. Thank you very much for joining us. There's no doubt I take a lot of notice of.
Well, I do. Even, on Amazon or whatever, and you always go down and see how it's doing.
But I go through a lot of them because the first few often are a bit samey, and you think, is that the same person or something? So you have to even use your reviews intelligently, don't you? But
yes.
I've never left one. Have you?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, I quite like leaving a review.
Wouldn't it put you off leaving a review if you had to put a selfie on and some sort of a document that proved that you're a real person?
I think it probably would.
Me too.
Yeah, but there you go. I suppose maybe if you're doing it through an app like Amazon or something, where you're already sort of registered, and maybe that would alter it a little bit,
yeah.
rather than just on a website. But anyway, Let us know what you think about that one. I think it's quite interesting. You want to trust your reviews, don't you? Look, we've got plenty more to come for you in just a couple of minutes, including the very latest on the French election. Not much discussion time left. Voting starts on Sunday.
Hello, good morning. I'm Luke Mile with your weather forecasts. And this Thursday morning is going to be a bit of a chilly one out there first thing. Temperatures have fallen away overnight, but through the day we'll see plenty of warm sunshine away from those eastern coasts. Now, we will start to see an easterly wind feeding in over the next few days with the high pressure to the north and lower pressure down towards the southwest. It does mean that things will turn a bit cooler along those eastern coasts, and already we're starting to see that through this morning with this low cloud here drifting onto the coasts of northeast England and southeast Scotland. But by and large, most places will see a fine and fair day, lots of sunshine around across the UK. A little bit more cloud developing though for England and Wales through the afternoon, turning that sunshine a little bit hazier through the afternoon. But where we do see the sunshine, those temperatures getting up to 18 degrees, that's 64 in Fahrenheit. Now, through Thursday afternoon and evening, we'll see plenty of sunshine to end the day. A lot of this cloud will melt away, so for many, a fair end to the day. But overnight, we start to see that easterly wind turning a bit stronger, drifting in this low cloud and mist and har, so it will turn a bit grey and a bit murky, I think, for some places, particularly in the east as we go to the small hours of Friday. Some clear skies, though, but with more wind and a bit more cloud in general, temperatures won't be as low as what they were on Thursday morning. And that cloud could be thick enough at times through Friday morning to give a few spits and spots of rain across southern areas. Nothing particularly heavy, but at times there will be a little bit more cloud and rain here. But the best of sunshine will be further north, particularly northwest Scotland, Northern Ireland, parts of northwest England. We'll see some fair weather here through the day. Temperatures still not doing too bad where we've got the sunshine, but with the cloud and with the cooler wind, it will feel quite chilly along those North Sea coasts and under any of this thicker cloud. And that's the trend really as we go through the next few days. Those temperatures sliding down somewhat, and there will be a few showers at times, particularly for more southern areas. Of course, I'll be back later with an update for you. Take care.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
.25 morning, you're watching and listening to Breakfast with Stephen and Anne.
Now, the French President Emmanuel Macron gained a slight lead on his opponent Marine Le Pen on Thursday after what was a very complex TV debate between the two rivals.
Yeah, now voters head to the polls on Sunday, but the analysts predict that voting levels will be pretty low. The president has strong support in Paris, Le Pen has loyal followers in the north. So people are still wondering, who is going to win?
Well, political commentator Alex Story joins us now from Salzburg. Hello there, Alex. Thanks for joining us. Why are they predicting that there will be a low turnout in the polls?
Well, it's an interesting one. I think the reason for this is that a lot of the parties that did badly, that didn't make it to the second round, find themselves in opposition. And they're sitting there watching Macron, a person that they really dislike, that reminds them very much of the Bourbons, the royal family that unfortunately was wiped out in the French Revolution in 1789. So they recognize that part of old France when they see Macron. And on the other side, they see a Marine Le Pen, which has a lot of baggage. She comes from her father, obviously Jean-Marie Le Pen. There is an enormous amount of history about some of the unsavory comments that used to be made over the last 20 to 30 years. And so they're finding themselves caught between a rock and a hard place. And it's really, really difficult for them to find the enthusiasm. I think you'll find the enthusiasm after the presidential election, whoever wins. So if Macron wins, there might be a real surge of support for the parliamentary elections that will take place a month or so after the presidential election. That's in June, end May or beginning of June. And then if Le Pen does win, you'll see a huge increase in turnout for the parliamentary elections again in this way. The reason why people are saying this is because if you have a Le Pen victory, there'll be all sorts of parties that will come to the fore. They'll they will say, we need your support in order to stop Marine Le Pen from enacting the things that she might want to, what she's planning or what she might want to enact when she wins.
But looking at the polls at the moment, it seems very unlikely, doesn't it, that Marine Le Pen would win?
Yeah, it does. You're right. The issue is one of momentum. If you think about what happened in 2002, her dad got 17% of the votes. 5 years ago, she got 33% of the votes. This time, people are saying she might get 46, 47% of the votes. That's an increase in the last decade or so of over 250%. So you can see real changes towards her party, towards the Le Rassemblement National, as it were. Now, the reason why people are nervous is because a good 50% of the people didn't distinguish between Macron and Le Pen as victors in the debates a couple of days ago. And interestingly enough, Macron won on the theory of governance. That's the international aspects of things like the EU, the euro. Then he won on economic governance, but that's okay because he's in power, so he would know much more about that, and he has all the levers of power. And then in terms of GDP growth, he's more trusted. But that's all the theories of things. Le Pen did much, much better on the things that are local and national. In other words, national concerns. She did much better on security. She did much better on pensions. She did much better on immigration. And importantly, Macron has no answer to inflation. And the reason why he doesn't is because France is part of the euro. So there is no central banking tools or monetary tools to raise interest rates to deal with French inflation. So people are nervous because the polls are tight. Some polls say she's on 47%, he's on 53%, but we all remember Brexit. We all remember that an 8% poll difference actually can vanish overnight. And I think the most important point when it's on a two-horse race like this, personalities matter. She came across as calmer and more homely, and he came across as haughty and what's the word I'm looking for? And arrogant. And this is the reason why people are slightly nervous.
Okay. Look, Alex, really good to talk to you. Thank you. We shall watch with bated breath.
Well, yeah, no doubt, Alex, we'll talk again. So thank you very much for the moment as tensions build over the weekend.
Yes. Now, let's have a look at all the sporting news for you this morning. Paul Coyte is here.
You never catch me being haughty and arrogant, by the way.
No,
I just want to make that cry. I've never been haughty in my life.
Haughty, it's the word. I haven't heard haughty for a while.
Eindhoven.
Yes.
I just remembered. I went home after we talked about it last weekend.
So did I. Looked it up as well,
and
yes.
It's Philips.
Philips?
Because the Dutch company Philips.
Yep.
Sports club is basically what
So when I did say that I think the S is probably sporting,
Yes,
I wasn't
you were.
that far
No, you
away.
were there.
I
No.
just didn't get the Phillips
Yeah.
part.
Oh.
Do you remember?
No, I'd forgotten all about that. I must have.
Well, you kept talking about PSV Eindhoven.
That's right,
And I said,
yeah.
what does the PSV stand for?
Yeah, and then I just went
really new.
and I just went very pale for
Yes.
about 2 seconds, and then came up with something.
I think I must have tuned out. Oh, talking of all things Dutch, though, Erik ten Hag.
Erik ten Hag, yes, he's going to be the new manager at Manchester United. He's not there yet, but that'll be at the end of the season. I mean, it's a great weekend of sport because it's the boxing, I think, is the thing we're most looking forward to. And there's Dillian Whyte will be fighting Tyson Fury, who's the world champion. That's actually Erik ten Hag. But I've got to tell you, he looks rather like Tyson Fury, doesn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, it's interchangeable. Can you imagine if it's Erik ten Hag who then goes in against Dillian Whyte? You know what? He'd probably stand a chance.
Where is the boxing match happening?
It's going to be at Wembley, 96,000. It's sold out so quickly. I mean, this is a huge fight because there are two Brits that are going to be in this. Now, there's the press conference, and often you get in these situations, there we are, that there'll always be a little trouble between the two boxes. There we are, they're facing to each other, and those that are listening on the radio are described there. There's too much smiling, there's patting on the back.
That's unusual, isn't it?
And the thing, it was almost like friendliness broke out at the press conference of the boxing, which is a bit bizarre, but there was a little bit of trouble with the entourages around them, and the weird thing is then Tyson Fury's the one that's coming in saying, now boys, let's take it easy, let's all be friends. It's a complete role reversal. So this is what happened to the fight tomorrow evening. And,
One is very
Wembley
much
Stadium.
taller than the other.
He is, yeah.
Does that matter in boxing?
Often it does, often it doesn't, because you know what? You could probably work the body a little different, you know, but it's sometimes it's like length of reach can sometimes make a difference, but it all
one can
depends
dance
how
around the
quick
other.
you are.
Interesting
There's a lot
to see,
more
isn't
to
it?
it than just heavy punching.
Dance like a butterfly, sing like a
That's
bee,
right,
and all that
yes,
sort of
exactly.
thing.
There you go. But the other thing is that I want to tell you about Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson, former world champion. Now, he got himself into a bit of trouble, or it's probably the person that was sitting behind him got into more trouble than anything else. So he's on a flight from San Francisco, and this was yesterday or the day before, and then a guy gets on, sitting in first class, sitting behind Mike Tyson. And it's probably the most stupid thing, probably since going into a lion's den holding a large piece of meat.
Yes.
So what he's done, and he's had a bit too much to drink, it seems, this guy.
Oh, no.
Let's have a selfie. So Mike's there. Yeah, OK, no problem. And then it continues. And then it continues. And Mike Tyson's getting a little upset about the whole situation. And in the end, well, you can imagine how it ends.
Oh, he didn't?
Yes, he did.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I mean, you may be 55 years old, but if you're going to get punched by Mike Tyson, and I don't know the thing that most annoys you on a plane, it's either be the person that's kicking behind or the person that puts their seat down. Well, anyway, this guy did not leave Mike Tyson alone. And Mike's just saying, look, take it easy. You don't, take... And then it's starting to get a bit more so. And in the end, well...
You decked him.
Yeah.
So is he up on anything? Are they going to do him for it?
I wonder, but I can imagine that the guy who was hit probably phoned his lawyer quicker than he did the police, if you know what I'm saying. So I don't know how much that's going to settle for, but there's videos going around of the whole thing.
Really?
But yeah, you can actually see it.
Well,
It's like,
everybody else would get their phones out, wouldn't they?
well, that's it. That's the first thing that they would do, instead of thinking, shall I help this guy? And then you think, actually, it is Mike Tyson. I'll probably stand by and I'll film it and leave it for someone else to
people
do.
just leave Mike Tyson alone.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Oh,
and there was quite a difference in height and reach between those two, I'm going to tell you as well. Oh, yeah.
Oh, can you imagine? No. I've never been hit like that.
I don't think you ever will be. You're far too nice to be hit. You wouldn't annoy anybody enough.
Just watch how you behave. That's
I can see.
Again, see, we talked about the height difference and the dancing around. OK, it's all a clue of what's going on. I'm reading between the lines here.
Paul, thank you.
Have a great weekend.
Let me just say I would not mess with Diamond.
No.
I've been known to throw a plate.
Have you?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not going to say anything else, but I have been known.
I think I can probably imagine.
Yeah.
Hey, look, stay with us. We've got plenty more to come. No fighting, but we will take you through the papers in a couple of minutes.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you, or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
It is 8:37, morning to you. This is Breakfast with Stephen and Anne on your TV and on your radio.
Yes, do remember, please, that we're also online, so you can watch us from anywhere in the world, which you'll probably already know about if you're watching us.
Yes, we're going to take...
I don't know why I went down that cul-de-sac.
I don't know, it works, it works, why not? We're going to take you through the papers in just a sec. Just want to say, though, the Prime Minister is holding a news conference in India at the moment, so when that all kicks off sort of properly and we get some decent words out of him, we will cross to that live. In the meantime, let's run you through the front pages. The Mirror says, at last, the Tories turn on the PM as party veterans call for Boris to quit as he faces a probe into Commons lies, as they put it.
The Times reports that ministers were on the brink of quitting before the government changed course over plans to block Labour's party's inquiry.
The Mail asks, how long can the Partygate farce go on? After a Downing Street bid to block a new inquiry, it backfired.
Home sweet home, says The Sun, as a picture, at least by the footballer Cristiano Ronaldo, shows his family together after the death of his little boy during childbirth. But they have, thank goodness, got the little girl safely home now.
Well, let's take you through the papers now with political consultant Emma Burnell and philosopher Piers Ben. Good to see you both once again this morning. Emma, you're starting with the Times and HRT, which I know nothing about.
I know an awful lot about.
OK.
I was going to try and style it out and say, no, I'm sure I look far too young to be on HRT.
You do, yes.
Sorry, but at this time in the morning, that's just not true.
What's the story about, though?
So basically, there's been...
Do you know what? I'm going to jump in, and I do apologise, but Boris has just started talking. So we'll come back. We will come back to the papers. Let's just listen to the Prime Minister.
My face was about as ubiquitous everywhere as Amitabh Bachchan. I was everywhere to be seen, and it was fantastic. Now, this morning we've had wonderful talks, and I think that they have strengthened our relationship in every way. In challenging times, it is very important that we, the Cartados, get closer together. And I believe the partnership between Britain and India, one of the oldest democracies, Britain is one of the oldest. I mean, Iceland, they say, is older, but we're one of the oldest. And India, certainly the largest democracy, is one of the defining friendships of our times. And what we're doing is taking forward an ambitious 10-year roadmap for British-Indian relations that we agreed last year. It was great to see you at the G7, but since then, the threats of autocratic coercion have grown even further. And it's therefore vital that we deepen our cooperation, including our shared interest in keeping the Indo-Pacific open and free. So today, we've agreed a new and expanded defence and security partnership, a decades-long commitment that will not only forge tighter bonds between us, but support your goal, Narendra, of Make in India. The UK is creating an India-specific open general export licence, reducing bureaucracy and slashing delivery times for defence procurement. We've agreed to work together to meet new threats across land, sea, air, space and cyber, including partnering on new fighter jet technology, maritime technologies to detect and respond to threats in the oceans. We're extending our partnership as science superpowers and building on the collaboration between Oxford AstraZeneca, for instance, and the Serum Institute of India, which vaccinated more than 1 billion people against COVID, including, I'm proud to say, me. I have the Indian jab in my arms, and a power of good it did me, so many thanks to India. And that has helped India to become what Narendra has called the pharmacy of the world. Today, we're embarking on joint initiatives on malaria vaccines, on antimicrobial resistance, and a digital partnership between the Indian National Health Authority and our NHS. We're also taking big steps together on energy security, helping each other to reduce our dependence on imported hydrocarbons and adopt cheaper, more sustainable, homegrown alternatives. And we have a new offer, a new plan to develop offshore wind from the Celtic Sea to Dhanushkodi. We've got a new UK-India hydrogen science and innovation hub, and we're taking forward the Green Grid solar power initiative that you and I began, Narendra, at COP26 in Glasgow together with 80 other countries. It's an incredible fact that the sun provides enough energy every day to power the world 10,000 times over. You have a lot of solar power here in India. The sun's putting on a fantastic performance today, but we have quite a lot in Britain as well. These partnerships form the superstructure of the living bridge that Narendra describes between our countries. And today, that bridge is humming with goods and services and people and capital, whizzing back and forth, east to west. And sometimes it can be hard to tell whether something is British or Indian or, frankly, Brindian. And on Wednesday, I went to the airport in a Range Rover, Indian-owned but made in Britain. And when I arrived here on Thursday, I visited JCB, British-owned but made in India, exporting 60,000 around the world, by the way, 110 countries. Or take the example of the Norton motorbike, now being revived in Britain by an Indian company. And I'm very pleased that this visit has not only deepened our economic partnership, we've agreed new deals worth £1 billion and created more than 11,000 jobs across the UK in everything from electric buses to the robotic surgery of Smith & Nephew, which I saw yesterday, as well as in artificial intelligence, where India's strengths are remarkable. And perhaps most significantly for the long term, we're making full use of the freedom that we now have to reach a free trade agreement, a deal where you can lift those tariffs, you can, India, Narendra, on our machinery and apples. Actually, you've already done it on apples, so thank you for the apples. And in turn, we can lift the tariffs on your rice and textiles. We've already closed 4 chapters, and today we're announcing new measures to make it easier to export UK-made medical devices to India and ensure mutual recognition of UK higher education qualifications. And as the next round of talks begins here next week, we're telling our negotiators, get it done by Diwali in October. get it done by Diwali. This could double our trade and investment by the end of the decade, widening that living bridge into a multi-lane motorway pullulating with beautiful jointly made electric vehicles and creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs in both our countries. So, as India celebrates its 75th year of independence, I am filled with optimism about the years ahead and the depth of the friendship between our countries and the security and the prosperity that our partnership can deliver for our people for generations to come. Thank you all very much, and thank you, Prime Minister Modi. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. That concludes the press statements. Please remain seated as the dignitaries.
OK, lovely. We'll keep an eye on the press questions for you and see if anything interesting pops along. But in the meantime, Emma and Piers are still here. Look, Emma, this is a Prime Minister delivering what is great news economically, free trade deals, which is exactly what we should be doing post-Brexit, and behaving, you know, in a way which is benefiting the country on the world stage. This is good, isn't it? This is why people like Boris Johnson.
I think it's good. One thing I really don't like is when you disagree with someone politically and don't say, yeah, that was good, when they do something reasonable, because then you just look stupid. You just look like you can't be anything but partisan. So, yeah, trade deals with India, fantastic. Love to see the small, well, I say I'd love to see the small print. I'd love to see the people who know what they're talking about see the small print, and make sure that we're getting enough out of it, making sure that we're protecting people's rights, protecting the workforces in India and the UK. But I don't think, frankly, that Boris Johnson is uniquely capable of striking trade deals. So I don't think this is necessarily like, oh, this wouldn't have happened if we'd had anybody else as Prime Minister. So I think that's a reasonable balance to strike, in that I'm not a fan of Boris Johnson. I like to see UK doing well in the world.
What did you think, Piers? I mean, he looked as though he knew what he was talking about, and he had a certain personality in the way he delivered it.
Yes, he did, and that explains his charm, it explains his success. And as Emma just said, and I think I pretty much agree with everything you said. You know, the fact that the man has certain faults that we were talking about before doesn't mean he doesn't have certain abilities. I mean, the ability to sound coherent, probably when it's scripted or when he's thought about it before, when it's not caught off guard.
I thought pullulating was probably...
Pullulating, I noticed you reacting to that.
In there, didn't
yes, the Johnsonisms, yes. I mean, maybe a new dictionary a la Dr. Johnson should now be invented for that. But I don't think any of this should be allowed to take away from the fact that the Partygate business, even though it may have been talked up, is disgraceful, that he has applied double standards to Number 10 staff and himself and the rest of the country, and that he just burbles and waffles at PMQs in particular, not just when questioned about his own misdeeds, but at PMQs, and it really, it won't do.
I don't know. I can see that a lot of people at home watching might say, hang on a minute, what else does the man have to do? You know, we either crucify him for Partygate and for being, you know, absconding with a piece of cake or whatever it was he was meant to have done, or we let him get on with the job, and that's what he's doing at the moment. He's getting
or
on
we
with
get
the
someone
job.
else to do the job.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the problem.
Well, all right,
and
who else?
if you want to have well, that is the problem the Tory party have, is that question of who else is a very, very difficult one to answer.
Yeah.
For a start, he's sacked half the people who could have done the job before the 2019 election. So they got rid of a lot of the depth of their bench.
Done the job?
But there are very few.
Jeremy Hunt?
Well, I mean, I'm not a Tory, so the fact that the Tory have very little talent on their benches is, for me, not a problem. I think there are plenty of people on the other side who could do a decent job. But the point is... well, Keir Starmer. I would rather have Keir Starmer in Number 10 any day of the week and twice on Sundays. But I think the point is not, oh, we either let Boris get on with the job or we worry about Partygate. We worry because the person who we are treating as the chief executive of our country there, when out doing trade deals, is someone we don't trust. And that's a problem.
These world leaders appear to trust him. I mean,
these world leaders have to deal with him, and he's the leader of the G7 country.
Really valued his visit, and by the look of it, they're valuing his visit in India.
Possibly they do trust him. Possibly Zelensky had to say that and would have just as happily praised another Prime Minister or even Keir Starmer.
But that's not fair to judge somebody's ability in a job by saying somebody else could do the job just as well. Is he doing the job well?
Well, the point is, what is the evidence that he is? I mean, what Boris Johnson's charm is explained by speeches we just heard like that, just live, and and that's how he gets endlessly forgiven for various things, because he's charming and he sort of invents new words and seems to warm to people. But the whole record of distortions and misleadings and double standards and waffle, it's just too great now. I don't deny he has some good qualities. I don't deny people like him. I don't deny there are good reasons to like him. But I don't buy it.
Nobody's all bad or all good. You make a judgment on the whole package, and then the whole package fails for me.
Oh, well, interesting. What about all those people who say, and we talked about this last time, say, look, we don't want him to. And in fact, interestingly, we dig it up because we were asking about people's voting intentions.
Oh, yes.
And someone said, here we go, morning Corrine, says, the way I will vote has changed due to Partygate. I will be voting Conservative. Well, the indication is from that is that, people are fed up with this sort of political fighting over what is technically a small issue. It's not
technically a small issue. If you lie to Parliament over this, what else could you lie to Parliament over? What else are you not telling us? What else on the way that you're running the country, when you're telling me to stay in my house on my own for so long that it had a serious effect on my mental health? Why should I trust you the next time you do that? I did it because I was protecting my parents' health and the health of the people and community I care about. But it is really worrying to me that we have lost the trust that would help us to enforce rules in the future.
OK. We are out of time. Emma Burnell, Piers Ben, thank you both very much indeed. Good to see you this morning.
And it's now time for On Your Doorstep.
Oh, Ellie Costello is having a lovely day on your doorstep in Portsmouth today. Morning, Ellie. Are you a bit peckish?
Yes, good morning, Stephen and Anne. I'm actually at the Base Camp Gym in Portsmouth today, but we're not actually here for the gym. We're here for this. Look at this. Fat Stacks Pancake House. Why can't every day be Pancake Day? It's a great question. So we're here to try some pancakes, we hope. And this is our lovely guest. Would you like to introduce yourself? You are live on TV and on radio.
Hi, I'm Eloise, and welcome to Fat Stacks. Do you want to come in?
Yes, we do. We want to come into where the magic happens. Let's head in to the kitchen. Cameraman Mike, don't slam the door on your face. There you go, lovely. Oh, you're busy making the pancakes already. So tell us, how does this work? 'Cause we're very intrigued. There is a gym downstairs, but you're selling pancakes up here. How does that work?
Yeah, so I do a lot of protein pancakes. So after people have finished working out, they can have any of my pancakes with protein powder. So, it's still a nice treat, but they're getting their protein kick as well. And I do a lot of kids pancakes as well. They have a lot of kids classes and things. Yeah, so it's good.
So you keep yourself busy, and it's very popular with local people here as well, isn't it? And the reason we're here is because we love the business. You are only, how old are you?
24.
24, and you started this business when you were 21, I believe.
21, yeah.
Amazing. So you started this business at 21. Why pancakes? What do you love about them?
I just love pancakes, and I just saw a gap in the market, really. I didn't really think anyone else was doing it. It's quite an American thing. Fluffy American pancakes, and I put the toppings in every layer.
Very important.
Really stacked up. And I just, they're just a really nice treat. So I like to have a bit of something for everyone. I've got lots of different flavoured toppings, and
And what was it like during the coronavirus pandemic? Yeah, don't catch your pancakes. Let's keep flipping them. What was it like during the coronavirus pandemic then? Because if the gym was shut, that must be quite difficult for you.
Yeah, it was different, but I think because a lot of people were getting sort of sweet treats delivered, where obviously everything else was shut, I think, that was quite a good little opportunity for me. So it was quite good, actually, yeah.
Because you're on Uber Eats, are you? And
Uber Eats and Just Eat, so delivering all around the local area in Portsmouth.
So you did well during the coronavirus pandemic. So with the rising cost of living, is that quite difficult for you then, now, worrying if people are still going to have those sweet treats, if they're going to pay for delivery services, that kind of thing?
I mean, I always do say to people, if you actually come in here, it sort of makes it more of like a family day out, and also yeah, if you like come down and the price is a bit cheaper, obviously it's always a bit more expensive on the delivery apps. So yeah, so hopefully, you know, people are always going to want those treats and, you know, want to take the kids out and things. So yeah, hopefully it'll still always
I'm
be
sure
there.
you will. They look absolutely delicious. And you're very busy making some stats there. This is for me and cameraman Mike, isn't it? What have you made us? Talk us through.
So yeah, so I heard you like Biscoff, Ellie. So I've made you, and this is our Biscoff stack, one of the most popular ones.
That looks amazing.
So that's you, and it's all our sustainable packaging, all like eco-friendly stuff we use.
Well, thank you. And Eloise was saying it's Earth Day, so it does really matter to you that everything's sustainable. So she's got sustainable cutlery as well. Eloise, can I try?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I've got a savoury one here for cameraman Mike.
He doesn't like sweet things. How weird is that?
So chicken and bacon, a bit of maple syrup. So for the less sweet tooths out there.
Right, here we go. Moment of truth. That is amazing.
Thank you.
And like you said, the sweet stuff is between every single layer. Very, very important. Eloise, thank you so much for having us at Pat Stacks. Fantastic to be with you. Stephen and Anne, I'm going to finish this pancake stack. I bet you wish you were here. I wish you had smell vision. It smells incredible in here.
Lovely, Ellie, thank you.
Really nice.
We are very jealous. We are very jealous. Bring some back to the studio.
I'd have a stack of bananas and cream.
Would you?
Yeah.
Oh.
What would you have in your
I
pancakes?
quite fancy like a sort of cheese and spinachy sort of thing.
Nice, yeah.
Oh, yum.
Really
anyway, we've got to go because we're busy drooling. Have we dropped the weather?
No, we've got time for a few views.
Have we?
Actually, Diana said we've been talking about Partygate, the P word, all morning, of course. P word is now banned in my household, says Diana. But we relaxed the restriction for a bit just to watch you two, and we have voted. When talking of voting, we're talking about the Trick Awards, the Television and Radio Industries Club Awards, for which we have been nominated.
Yes.
Leslie says, good morning. I missed how to vote in the TV Awards. You spoke too fast. So it is...
Trick. Which is tric.org.uk, and our producers emailed you, Leslie.
Oh, yes.
With that.
And Leslie says, I would dearly love to vote for GB News. I have it on all day. I even leave it on for my dog if I ever go out. Thank you, GB News, for keeping me sane. I always wonder how many dogs are watching us, you know, on their own.
Yeah, well, you got to leave. They need something to look at, don't they? There's nothing wrong with that. Linda says, I'm watching from Israel.
Hello.
Oh, wow.
Good morning.
Anne, you're looking great. Stephen, I'm a great fan.
There you are.
If I lived nearer, I'd bring you some soup.
Oh, that would be nice.
Very nice, too.
Because it's very cold in this studio still.
And Teresa, now see, I'm with you this on Teresa. She says she watches us all the time now because I'm sick of argumentative presenters on other leading TV news programmes. Because a lot of people do argue with guests.
Yes.
What's the point?
A lot of TV journalists think that the whole objective is conflict.
Yeah.
And I don't believe it is. I think it's more just interest. It's fine. Getting the guests you're interviewing to be interesting.
Yeah, and to get information out of them so you can make up your mind about what you think. We've got much more coming up for you in a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
MPs order a third investigation into whether or not the Prime Minister misled Parliament over Partygate.
Good morning to you. It is 9 o'clock on Friday, the 22nd of April. This is Breakfast on GB News with Stephen and Anne.
And we're live across the UK, on your TV, on your radio and online. This is what's happening this morning. Boris Johnson has just announced new trade and defence partnerships with India, but he still faces trouble back home after a new inquiry into Partygate was passed in the Commons. We'll have all the latest updates from the Prime Minister and from Westminster.
The Mayor of Mariupol has said there are 100,000 civilians still trapped in the war-torn region, waiting to be evacuated as Vladimir Putin orders his troops to seal off the steelworks in the city.
And voters go to the polls on Sunday in the French presidential election. As campaigning continues today, Emmanuel Macron maintains a slight lead in the polls over his rival Marine Le Pen.
As always, and it gets more and more every day, the number of you getting in touch. You wouldn't believe how pleased we are. We've got a producer working on this just on your views.
Yeah, and he's brilliant.
Because so many come through.
He comes in every 20 minutes or so, waving a bit of paper.
Piles
It's all
of
your
paper.
views. It's really good fun reading
It is.
them.
So do get in touch. Join the conversation. gbviews@gbnews.uk.
I was asking earlier if any of the squabbling over Partygate has changed the way you're going to vote come the local elections in May. Graham says, you asked whether squabbling will change voting intentions. Mine won't change from Conservative. The only squabbling I'm exposed to seems to be media-based and the Labour Party.
Sue says, I'm not voting in the local elections. It's a waste of time. They're not interested in people. Newport in South Wales is a city and people are being pushed into using public transport, but there isn't a bus service after 7 o'clock. Well, you know, you can make your voice heard through a vote, Sue. I would say I think voting's very important, but
I don't understand it. You know, you read out what Corinne said earlier. She says the way I will vote has changed due to Partygate. I'll be voting Conservative. What does she mean? Does she mean that she wasn't Conservative before?
Yeah, and that this has pushed her into it.
Why would it push you into it?
I mean, I'm guessing, Corinne, but I would imagine the argument is, you know, they're making such a fuss over what is a small issue. Or could be perceived...
By some.
Some people would say it's not a small issue, but other people would. So it's interesting. Christine is in Carmarthen. She said, I'm going to vote for Plaid Cymru in the local elections because the council is proactive in our community. Well, that's the point. Do you vote?
Yes.
Do you vote for a party or for your representative? Labour for the Senate and Boris Johnson for Prime Minister. If they try to replace him, I will not be voting in the general election.
It's an interesting way to protest, though, isn't it, not to vote? Anne says, I'm working class and I've never voted Labour. Nearly did with Blair, but this current shadow cabinet fills me with dread.
Interesting, isn't it? But, I mean, so many different perspectives, you know, and, you know, it's...
So many people calling for Boris to resign, and yet when you say to them, all right, who to replace him, don't know how to answer that one. And
no.
To me, that says such a lot.
I think it would be interesting that people who are Tory supporters wanting him to go would be a good question as to, you know, what do you want to see happen? I think there's got to be an argument that says if you're the Labour Party and you want him to go, you've got to be knowing that is likely to cause some sort of collapse. Leading to a general election.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Surely the Tories would just put in a different...
Well, they would, but I just think it would... I think the run of general election wins would come to an end because it's, you know, it's just that sort of downward downward spiral from that
Down
point.
they came up with. It depends totally, doesn't it? Shall we talk to GB News' political correspondent Tom Harwood, who's slid into the studio? Yeah. So I mean, let's just start with that one before we talk about what Boris has achieved in India. I mean, who are the likely replacements, and would it cause a complete collapse of the Tory party and therefore a general election?
Well, one of the reasons why this feels like it's been held in suspended animation for the last few months is, or at least the last month or so, is there's no immediately obvious successor. There are a number of names that are thrown around, but since Rishi Sunak's troubles with his tax affairs, troubles with his wealth, and indeed media troubles with regard to receiving a fixed penalty notice, although it must be said I haven't spoken to a single journalist who in private thinks that Rishi Sunak thought he was doing anything wrong in that instance.
He just turned up.
He turned up for a meeting.
For a meeting.
And was, in effect, ambushed by a cake, to coin a phrase.
Yes.
But to some extent, people believe Rishi Sunak there, but less so Boris Johnson.
Yeah,
it's an interesting
odd,
distinction when it's the same event and they've both received penalties.
Nadine Dorries has said Boris never even saw a cake.
Well, there's a big there's a disagreement as to what happened to the cake. I think what has been arrived at is that there was a cake, but it stayed within its Tupperware box, and that may be the answer as to why people saw a cake.
You can understand
that
people
departifies it, doesn't
but when
it, really?
people like Karine are saying, she's going to vote Tory because of this in the local elections, you understand why people think. People are debating whether a cake came out of a Tupperware box or not, and is this going to lead to the downfall of a Prime Minister?
It does sound frankly ridiculous when you put it in those terms. However, when, as Sir Keir Starmer did at the start of this week in parliamentary terms, and he stood up and he spoke about various constituents across the country who were unable to see loved ones, who were prevented from doing very basic, very human things by the consequences of the pandemic legislation that was passed. To some extent, those trivialities matter
in
more.
Context. It's context, isn't it?
Even though when you were to apply the context and a lot of these events, for example, the 19th of June event when Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak have received a fine for, by that time it was actually legal to visit a dying relative. But that sort of gets lost in the fray, all these changes of regulations over the course of these 2 years. But yes, this is a very serious issue affecting Parliament, and one that will drag on and on.
Would it trigger a general election, as Stephen was
or at least the downfall of the government by the next general election?
The only way that a general election is called within our system is if the Prime Minister calls a general election, or indeed a vote of no confidence is taken in the House. Now, that's different from a vote of no confidence within the Conservative Party. Of course, there's still a Conservative majority in Parliament. The Conservatives could cycle out their leader every week for all it matters, and there'd still be a Conservative majority in Parliament. But if Parliament passes a vote of no confidence, that calls a general election. But to your point, I think, yes, there is to some extent a thought that if the Conservative Party has been in number 10 in one form or another since 2010, and we would have cycled through 4 Prime Ministers, potentially that generates a sense of unease, maybe a sense of a loss of grip. Maybe malaise is generated around the party in that sense, and potentially that makes it harder to win a general election. Lots of questions there. Although what the Prime Minister would want us to be talking about right now is none of this.
No, that's right.
The number 10 are desperate to move away from this conversation, and of course there's just been a joint press conference in New Delhi between Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Boris Johnson, where some really interesting things have been said, particularly when it comes to the progress on a free trade agreement with India, something that a year ago many people didn't expect us to have made much progress on at all. The EU has been trying to get a free trade agreement with India for over a decade, and they've got nowhere. Well, today the Prime Minister announced we've already closed 4 chapters in our negotiation, and he coined a new phrase: deal done by Diwali.
That's right. Yes,
so quite possibly by October, when Diwali falls, we could have a free trade agreement with the second most populous country in the world. And that could mean 0 tariffs on manufacturing exports, 0 tariffs on rice imports, on clothing imports. It could
medical,
mean
he
medical supplies.
Medical supplies.
Absolutely. And when we're facing a cost of living crisis here at home over the next few years, something like this.
Deal done by Diwali, yes.
Deal done by Diwali with a country of 1 billion people. This could be a very significant moment, and potentially talking about timeframes here. would the Prime Minister be in a safer place if he was able to say, we're charging towards this October deadline, oh, don't think about removing me by October because we're about to achieve a really quite significant international agreement?
In October, coincidentally, when the price of fuel and everything is going to go up, energy is going to go up again in this country.
And the Conservative Party conference.
Of course, yes.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Happy
that's
timing.
very interesting.
But if it all comes to pass, you say it's an absolute milestone in post-Brexit Britain. Tom, thank you. We'll see you at 9:30, won't we? Look forward to that.
So let's bring you up to date with the headlines. And a German national linked to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has been identified as a formal suspect by Portuguese authorities. Officers haven't named the individual, but in 2020, German police said they were investigating a man known as Christian B. in connection with the disappearance of the 3-year-old in Praia da Luz in May 2007.
Ukrainian troops are in the UK being trained on British armoured vehicles. The Prime Minister says 20 soldiers are being shown how to operate tanks and armoured reconnaissance cars. Britain is supplying 120 of the vehicles to Ukraine.
And in an attempt to tackle food waste, the Co-op is going to scrap use-by dates on all its own brand yoghurts. They'll be replaced with best-before dates instead, which the supermarket says will give consumers confidence to use their judgment instead of throwing away unopened yoghurts. The French President Emmanuel Macron gained a slight lead on his opponent Marine Le Pen on Thursday after the TV debate between the two rivals.
Now, voters head to the polling stations on Sunday, but analysts are saying that turnout is going to be, in fact, pretty low. The president has pretty strong support in Paris. Marine Le Pen has loyal followers in the north. So it still has that question left fairly wide open as to who will win.
Well, the elections are underway and people go to the polls on Sunday, I think. But analysts predict, as we said, that voting levels could be low. So let's find out why.
Yes, let's talk to Paul Hawkins, who's in beautiful Paris for us this morning. Paul, good to see you. I mean, what's your take, after being there for a few hours, what's your take on what is going on there, what the sense is there ahead of these polls on Sunday?
Yeah, morning, Stephen, morning. And listen, the thing about where the polls are going to go on Sunday, and remember, polls suggest, polls don't say what is going to happen. So at the moment, the gap between the two candidates, between Macron and Le Pen, Macron leading by 10 percentage points. But as we've seen in the past, polls can get it wrong. And the key vote on Sunday will be where the people who voted for the third place candidate in the first round, Jean-Luc Mélenchon, where those votes go. So he polled 22% of the vote. Le Pen got 23% and Macron 28%. And just have a look at the front page of this morning's. This is a left-wing newspaper in France, L'Humanité, and it says "Contre Le Pen, courage, votons," which means basically have the courage to vote against Le Pen. Notice it doesn't mention anything about Macron, and that is what Jean-Luc Mélenchon did in the first round. When he held his rally after the results were announced, he said, do not vote for Le Pen, vote against Le Pen. But he didn't say necessarily go out and vote for Macron. So where that 22% of the electorate, where they place their vote on Sunday, is going to be key. They could abstain, they could spoil their ballot, or they can come out and vote reluctantly for Macron. And I say reluctantly for Macron because a lot of Macron's programme over the past 5 years has been fiscally, anyway, in terms of economic policy, very pro-business, very right-wing. He wants to raise the pension age from 62 to 65, and that is very unpopular here in France. So on the social issues, he's on the left. On fiscal issues, on the economy, he's on the right. And so where those people vote, where the Mélenchon voters go on Sunday, will be key.
Yes, so what traditionally do the contenders do the day before the polls open? Where will they go? What will they be doing?
They won't be doing anything the day before the polls. They'll be keeping quiet because this is the last day of polling. The last day of campaigning, I should say, here in France today, and then the polls open on Sunday. So unlike in Britain where you can campaign right up until the day before, there is a kind of media blackout really. You can just report that the election is happening, but you can't really talk about any of the issues within France tomorrow and Sunday. And the campaigning stops today. But it's going to be a big election. Look, Le Pen is not the favourite to win by any stretch, but if she does pull off the impossible, and this is her best chance, she's had 3 goes at the presidency, if she does pull it off on Sunday, it will be enormous, it will be seismic. We're talking an election result of Brexit and Trump proportions, and it would send shockwaves across Europe, not least in the EU, since while Marine Le Pen has rowed back on wanting France to leave the European Union. She's not calling for that anymore, but she is calling for reform within the European Union. Remember, France was a founding member of the European coal community, the forerunner to the EU. So if France were to vote for a candidate that is still anti-EU, that would be huge and would send big shockwaves to Brussels.
Yeah, I bet it would. Paul, for now, thank you. Are we catching up with you tomorrow?
We are, I think.
Lovely.
Yeah, you can do if you want to pop in. I'm always around.
To Paris.
Yeah,
It looks lovely behind you. Wonderful. Yeah.
We'll come and join you, Paul. Thanks very much for now.
That'd be nice.
I've just got to say hello to Chrissy in York, who likes your necklaces, Anne.
Oh, thank you.
What a wonderful selection of necklaces. You must have a drawer full of them.
Yes, and there's a lady watching at the moment who makes a lot of them for me.
Oh, really?
She's a big GBNews fan. Yeah.
All right.
Hi.
Oh, there you go.
She knows who she is. You know who you are.
That's very nice to know.
Yeah.
Very nice to know.
Absolutely.
We should get her on to do a demonstration.
She would love to, yeah. But she often says to me, oh, I liked your outfit yesterday. I've got just the necklace that would go with that when you want to wear it again.
Oh.
So I bump into her at the shop, you see.
All right.
So,
very handy. Very handy. You need to know these sort of people. Look, we're going to run through all the showbiz and lots of your views in just a couple of minutes, so do stay with us.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Friday's forecast. We're looking at sunny spells, particularly across the north of the UK through Friday. A few showers across the south, but noticeably windy for everyone. And the reason for this is low pressure sits to the south of the UK, high to the north. This is allowing a strong easterly wind to develop right across the country, so noticeably feeling cooler compared to recent days. Friday morning, a bright start for many, though thicker cloud across central southern parts of the UK. This slowly drifting its way westwards as we move through the morning and into the afternoon. Showers developing where the cloud starts to break up. Some of these could be heavy at times, but the Midlands, North Wales northwards, plenty of sunshine to come for much of the day, though some low cloud along eastern coast. And with that brisk easterly breeze here, temperatures pegged back 11, 12, 13 degrees. Best of the sunshine across western areas, high 16 or 17, so a little cooler than they have been of late. Through the evening, we should lose the showers across the south and southwest, but only to be replaced by a lot of cloud across the country, some mist and murk over the hills too, perhaps thick enough for the odd spot of drizzle. And in between, there will be some clear skies, but overall, temperatures not quite as low tonight compared to recent nights with a bit more cloud around, which means generally a cloudier start to Saturday morning compared to recent mornings. Bits and pieces of drizzle moving in off the North Sea. And through the day, a lot of cloud around. The best of the sunshine will be across western areas. Perhaps later on into the afternoon, some more sunshine developing across southern Scotland, northern England. But 1 or 2 heavy showers for the Midlands, Wales here, but hopefully in between some brighter skies. And where we can see the sunshine, temperatures 16 or 17, but still that brisk wind down the east, keeping temperatures here nearer 11 or 12. The wind should ease a little into Sunday, but there will be a lot of cloud around, the best of the sunshine in the west. Similar on Monday, but noticeably cooler as we head into Monday with temperatures starting to fall away.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Patrick Christie's.
And I'm Mercy Moroki.
Make sure that you join us Monday to Thursday, 10 a.m. until midday, right here on GB News for To The Point.
We're not afraid to talk about the topics that matter to you or the big topics that always matter.
We cover absolutely everything, from the breaking political stories of the day to law and order, what's going on in the channel. We're not afraid to hold people to account.
We always make sure we include your views on our show.
Indeed, if you're thinking it, you can guarantee that we're saying it. So make sure you join the conversation with us, 10 a.m. until midday, Monday to Thursday, for To The Point on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Morning to you. It's 9:20.
So just 9 more minutes of us, but we're back again tomorrow.
Yeah, not even that, 5 minutes. I know we're running out.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
But I tell you what, over 1,000 emails today during the show.
Wow, thank you very much. Annette in
Amazing.
Malmo in Sweden says, I've voted for you, have a lovely day.
Oh, thank you, yes.
And Dave and Julie Rowley are watching from Aguilas, is that how you say it, in Spain. Great show as always, and thanks for showing my mum and dad on Mother's Day. Oh, lovely.
David in Hertfordshire is talking about the voting plans. He's not impressed with Boris at the moment. Your points are noted, Dave, but I've got to say, my favourite line, he said, favourite pancake filling, cherry and ice cream, also known as Jubilee pancakes, appropriately.
So we'll all have to have them on Jubilee Day, won't
Jubilee pancake. We're going out for Jubilee Saturday, 4th of...
June?
4th of July.
July?
Is it? I think it's
we need to check.
And we're going to be at a street party for the show.
Having Jubilee pancakes.
That'll be nice, that'll be fun. Anyway, look, let's have a look at the showbiz for you this morning. Stephanie Tetchy is here. Good morning.
I like the sounds of a Jubilee party, guys.
Nice. Jubilee pancake.
Gosh, I'm going to turn up.
You'll be there.
In my Union Jack outfit.
Yeah. No, you'll be there, because it's be the whole breakfast family over there. That'd be great. Let's talk Johnny Depp, should we, in this ongoing court case?
This has been one of the most toxic and ugliest breakups that I've seen in a while in Hollywood. Yesterday, jurors at the case in Virginia were shown footage of Johnny Depp, who appeared very drunk, and he was smashing up things in his kitchen. They were cross-examining him, as you can see some of the things here. Amber Heard had recorded him secretly, and he's drinking alcohol. He's being quite violent, and this is all in her attempt to prove that how abusive he can be when he's been under the influence of drink and drugs. And the case has been really nasty this week. They've both been kind of tit for tat, getting things out. Earlier this week, we saw a picture of Amber stubbing a cigarette out on Johnny Depp's face. So it's been quite intense.
Yeah. Oh, dear. How long?
What the jury's going to make of it?
I don't know, because obviously Johnny lost his case in the UK against him, you know, being liable as a wife beater. So he lost that case. So I feel like he has a point to prove, and he hopefully will win this case, but I kind of doubt it. I think the odds are stacking up against him. But we're also seeing a bit about Amber's character as well, because he's like, I'm supposed to be in a relationship with this woman and she's been filming such scenes of me illegally. Why has that been happening? And it's like she was almost storing all this evidence up for a case such as this.
You do. It does raise a few questions. I've got to say, they're talking from one court case to another. What's going on with the Wagatha Christie stuff?
So we know that this has been an ongoing case, and the Wagatha Christie, as we know, it's Rebecca Vardy who's taken Colleen Rooney to court. Apparently, she said that she was selling stories, but at the moment, it's not looking good in Rebecca Vardy's case, because it's just come out that she attempted to sell a story on one of her husband's, Jamie Vardy's football player teammates, Danny Drinkwater, for drink driving. So that's came out. WhatsApp messages have come out between her and her agent saying how she wanted to sell the story to the Sun and
Why would she want to do
and
that?
how she wanted to get paid for it. But luckily, the Sun already had the information there, so they didn't want the story. But now these WhatsApp messages have been made public in the High Court yesterday. So it's not showing Rebecca in a good light, because this is what the whole court case is about. It's about Colleen saying that she tried to sell stories about her, and now we've seen that she tried to do the same thing again.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Why
dear.
would you need to sell stories at
She's
all?
minted.
She's got loads of money.
At all. I'm like, you are with a footballer, you're a wag, you're well off, you've got all this money. So why she feels she needs to do that? I think it must have been like a little addiction for her.
Yes,
where she
it
just
sounds like an
wanted
obsession, doesn't
yeah,
it?
she just wanted to stitch up famous people that she knows, but this is not good.
Wow.
The
No.
case will be in the first week of May.
OK. Can we sort of look at... There's a new George Michael documentary.
Yes. So
I believe it's, 6 years this Christmas since he died?
I loved George Michael, but before his untimely death, he was actually recording a documentary called Freedom Uncut, and it gets up and close and personal with him, looking at his life beyond music and his personal battles, but also it goes all the way back to the 80s, and it includes all this archive footage of him, but then also it's quite a big showbiz affair, so we're going to have people like Elton John, Niamh B. Campbell, all the people he starred with, it's going to be there, and it's kind of quite haunting because actually George narrates it.
Right.
So we will hear his voice. And this has been dubbed as his final work of love for us all.
Oh, that's going to be one to watch.
It
Stephanie?
will be a tearjerker, that will, because he was a lovely, lovely man.
Yes.
Lovely guy. Oh.
Such a shame,
Yeah.
isn't it? Look, we'll see you tomorrow morning,
I
won't
will
we?
see you in the morning, guys.
Good, good, good. We look forward to it. Hopefully we'll see you in the morning as well, because we'll be back from 6 till 10 tomorrow.
Bye.
Hello there, I'm Greg Dewhurst and welcome to Friday's forecast. We're looking at sunny spells, particularly across the north of the UK through Friday. A few showers across the south, but noticeably windy for everyone. And the reason for this is low pressure sits to the south of the UK, high to the north. This is allowing a strong easterly wind to develop right across the country, so noticeably feeling cooler compared to recent days. Friday morning, a bright start for many, though thicker cloud across central southern parts of the UK. This slowly drifting its way westwards as we move through the morning and into the afternoon. Showers developing where the cloud starts to break up. Some of these could be heavy at times, but the Midlands, North Wales northwards, plenty of sunshine to come for much of the day, though some low cloud along eastern coast, and with that brisk easterly breeze here, temperatures pegged back 11, 12, 13 degrees. Best of the sunshine across western areas, high 16 or 17, so a little cooler than they have been of late. Through the evening, we should lose the showers across the south and southwest, but only to be replaced by a lot of cloud across the country, some mist and murk over the hills too, perhaps thick enough for the odd spot of drizzle. And in between, there will be some clear skies, but overall, temperatures not quite as low tonight compared to recent nights, with a bit more cloud around, which means generally a cloudier start to Saturday morning compared to recent mornings. Bits and pieces of drizzle moving in off the North Sea. And through the day, a lot of cloud around. The best of the sunshine will be across western areas. Perhaps later on into the afternoon, some more sunshine developing across southern Scotland, northern England. But one or two heavy showers